You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
Okay, why don't we, I've got 7 o'clock. Why don't we check and see who's here? Joe Chadwick, are you
Recording in progress.
Joe Chadwick, I think you're muted. Joe, are you here?
I think he's not showing as muted on my screen.
Yeah, Joe, can you hear us? Joe Chadwick?
Maybe he can't hear us.
Can you not hear us, Joe?
I can hear now. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent.
Okay, Joe Chadwick's here. Marcy Pelusi, are you here?
Marcy Pelusi's here.
Excellent. Joe Vayuzo, Joe, you here? It looks like he's,
Joe Vayuzo's.
Excellent. And then Sharon Hutner. Sharon, are you here?
Sharon Hutner is here.
Okay, great. And okay, so the members of the commissions are here. We just went through those. I am Chuck Andrus. I am chair. Our staff this evening is our town planner, Harry Smith. Harry, you're here.
I'm here.
Our assistant planner, Evan Brining. Evan, are you here?
I'm here.
And our clerk recording secretary, Michelle Martin, is lurking in the background. So with that, we'll call this meeting to order. It is Thursday, November 3rd, 2022. It is now 7:02 p.m., our regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. We just introduced everyone, and now maybe I'll ask our secretary to read the notice of public hearing. Marcy, can you do that?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Marcy. The legal notice says the Planning and Zoning Commission of the town of Branford, Connecticut hereby gives notice of public hearings to be held on Thursday, November 3rd, 2022 at 7 p.m. by remote technology to consider the applications listed below. Information regarding how to participate in the public hearings will be provided on the commission's meeting agenda that will be posted on the town's website at least 24 hours prior to the meeting. Item number 1, application number 22-9.7. Special exception for an accessory apartment located at 45 Pine Orchard Road. Pasquale and Barbara Ruocco, applicants and owners. At said hearings, all persons will have the right to be heard. Copies are on file in the Planning and Zoning Commission's office at the Planning and Zoning Department, 1019 Main Street, Branford, Connecticut 06405. Written communications may be sent to the above address or to planning and zoning at branford-ct.gov. The foregoing legal notice was to be published once in the Sound on Thursday, October 20th and October 2022.
Chuck and Chair, thank you, Marcy. With that, we'll follow our normal format for the public hearing, which means the applicant goes first, makes its presentation with the applicant and its consultants goes. And after that, we'll turn it over to staff. We'll have a summary of the staff report and open it up to questions and comments from commission members. At that point, after we're done with that, we'll open it up for public comment. And in a moment, I'll ask Evan or Harry to review the process for participating in the public process. So and we'll ask that you state your name and address for the record, and Evan will explain how to go about and you can make your comments. After the public portion, we allow the applicant to respond to the public portions, and we may or may not close the public hearing depending on how things go. So with that, Evan, can you review with us the process for participating in the public hearing?
Sure. If your computer has a microphone for two-way communication, either next to your name on the participant list or down at the bottom of your screen, there's a reactions button. And once you select that, you can press raise your hand to indicate that you would like to speak. You can also indicate in the chat that you would like to participate. And if not, you can wave your hand in front of the camera and I'll try to find you. If you are dialing in by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. And like Chuck Andre said, please state your name at the beginning of your comment.
Chuck Anderson, thank you, Evan. And with that, we'll start with our first public hearing item. This is a continuation that we opened and continued at our October 20th meeting, and that's 819 is East Main Street LLC, care of attorney Marjorie Shansky, applicant, Sullivan Farm LLC, care of Jim Sullivan, owner, and it's 841 East Main Street, a special exception, research laboratory, general office, and section 6.8 grading within 100 feet of inland wetland. Is the applicant, Ms. Shansky, you ready to proceed?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. We are ready to proceed. Am I audible?
Yes, Ms. Shansky, I can hear you. You're maybe a little tad soft, but we can hear you.
I can adjust that a bit. And thank you so much. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I'm attorney Marjorie Shansky, and I represent 819 East Main Street LLC in connection with this application for special exception and site plan review for the property at 819-841 East Main Street in Branford. The special exception request relates to the proposed corporate office and research and development uses and to grading pursuant to sections 4.8.L.6, 4.8.C.1, and 6.8 of the Branford zoning regulations. With me this evening are the gentlemen and women of BL companies, including professional engineers Chris Gagnon and Jeff Dewey, professional engineer Pat Patio, who is our traffic engineer, Wayne Violet, who is the landscape architect, and Kristen Robbins, AIA architect. The property is located in the BR zoning district. The application relates to approximately 6.88 acres of the parcel that are located in Branford. The parcel has an additional 2 acres, approximately 2 acres, that extend into Guilford, and there's a little niblet of land in North Branford, which Mr. Gagnon will show in his presentation. Because of the cross-jurisdictional nature of the land, notices of these proceedings and of our application to the Branford Inland Wetlands Agency were provided to Guilford and to North Branford, with both towns responding and expressing no interest or concerns relating to these applications. We are here this evening with an approval from the Branford Inland Wetlands Agency in October. And during that process, we received early comments from the town planner and town engineer, which have been incorporated into revised plans that were submitted. And we have also received later comments, which will be shown to the commission this evening in our plans. Mr. Chairman, in my letter to the commission dated July 15th, 2022, I analyzed the application against the special exception criteria of section 9.8.F of the regulations. All of the BL company plans and reports that have been provided to the commission and our testimony this evening further bolster the regulatory consistency of this proposal. And I'm happy to spend time on those criteria, but suggest that the letter may speak for itself and supports a conclusion of regulatory consistency and eligibility of the applicant for the permit, but we're happy to take any of your questions on any element of that consistency. And with respect to section 6.8, the plans, reporting, and comments of Chris Gagnon and Jeff Dewey will demonstrate satisfaction of those requirements relating to that special permit. The application includes a statement of use for the corporate offices and research and development, which is intended for the field of medtech, medical technologies, specifically the development of custom engineered medical devices for diagnostic and interventional applications. As the use statement indicates, the building will house general corporate offices serving a worldwide customer base. And on the research and development side, we'll house a team of engineers who are engaged in software development, electronic design, instrumentation, and testing. Operations will occur Monday through Friday between the hours of 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. There's a workforce of 48 individuals envisioned with potential of some additional jobs over time as set forth in the use statement. Mr. Chairman, that is the overview of the proposal, and with that, I will turn the presentation over to Mr. Gagnon, unless you have any questions.
You can proceed, Chuck Anderson. Thank you, Ms. Jansky. You can continue.
Good evening, everyone. I am Chris Gagnon, as introduced by Attorney Shansky, and I'm a professional engineer licensed here in Connecticut, working out of BL Companies, 355 Research Parkway in Meriden, Connecticut. Luckily for you, my part of the presentation is pretty short, as we have a number of subject matter experts here with us tonight, as also introduced by Attorney Shansky, and I'll do a quick overview. Jeff Dewey from my office has the plans pulled up. Can he get permission to share his screen? I find it's easiest just to talk through the project with the plans up, as that is what we're talking about here.
Harry Smith, Town Planner. I tried to identify everyone on the BL team as co-hosts, so all of you should be able to share your screens, not concurrently, but serially. So take it away.
Excellent.
Okay, I am set to be sharing my screen. Can you see it at this point?
Not yet, Mr. Dewey. Harry Smith, Town Planner.
Let me try that again.
Let me make sure you're a co-host.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Now it's coming up. We see the motorcycle. Is that? Oh no. Okay.
Sorry about that.
I'd be happy to talk about the motorcycle as well, if that would. Again, Chris Gagnon with the BL Company. So what we are proposing for you today is approximately 36,000 square foot research and development building. As Attorney Shansky referenced, this parcel is it is one parcel. However, it is uniquely situated in that it is in 3 different towns. The property line between Branford and Guilford is being highlighted by Jeff right now. So you can see there's that back parcel on the eastern side. That is all within Guilford. There is a pond over there that is in Guilford, and there is some wetlands down on the Branford side of the site. We did go through a complete wetlands application process and were approved last month in wetlands. So that is why we are here in front of you. And also, as referenced, there is a teeny part of the parcel that is in North Branford. You can see the North Branford town line running down and to the left from Jeff's cursor. So that the North Branford side of the parcel, it's just the teeniest little bit of it. This parcel is located at the intersection of Goldsmith Road and Route 1. We are proposing 3 access ways into the site. Initial comments from town staff indicated that we should not allow any of the delivery traffic into the site to utilize Goldsmith Road. So the Goldsmith entrance, our driveway there, that size has been reduced down to just a standard 24-foot wide access drive, and so the truck traffic will not be allowed to utilize Goldsmith Road. This site is in the total parcel is about 9.4 acres, again with just 6.9 of it in Branford, and all of this proposed work is in Branford and along the Route 1 frontage. There are 125 proposed parking spaces with this project. The size of the building requires that we have one loading space. We do propose 2 loading docks in the back. And the site, we have designed the full stormwater management system in compliance with the regulations and in coordination with the town engineer. Additionally, evolution of the plans in response to town comments, we have made sure that all of the slopes are the steepest slope we have is it's 3-to-1 or flatter out there in response to the town comments. So that is really a brief overview of the site itself. I'm just looking at my notes right here. So yeah, between what Marjorie and I covered, let me just see here. Oh, and another in response to town comments as well. We have proposed the sidewalk along the frontage of Route 1 as requested. So those were the real changes there. And so that is the overview of the site that I wanted to provide. And then we have with us Jeff Dewey is the lead senior engineer on the project, and he can discuss the details a little bit about the stormwater management system and the site engineering and utilities real quickly. So I'm gonna hand it over to Jeff, and then just for the record, we have a plan here with how we're going to present this all to you. Then we're going to get into the traffic report that we prepared. Pat Padlow will provide the testimony on that. And then we'll have our landscape architect, Wayne, get into the landscape plan and lighting plan. And finally, last but not least, Kristen Robbins from our architecture group will discuss a little bit about the building. So I will kick it over to Jeff Dewey, the lead engineer on the project, to talk just a little bit about the stormwater management and utilities, so you guys can get the details on that. Thank you very much.
Jeff, just before you start in, Harry Smith, town planner, can the whole applicant team, if you are making working off of plans that have been further modified beyond what plans have been received in the office and forwarded to the commission in their packets last Friday, just let us know so we know that we're looking on the screen at something different than what people have had in front of them before.
Okay,
thank you.
Yes, sir. Noted. And thank you, Chris, for the introduction. For the record, my name is Jeff Dewey. I'm a licensed professional civil engineer in Connecticut, and I work for BL Companies out of the Meriden office. I'm happy to be here this evening to present this project. I think through the town staff comments, we've compiled all the comments and have it's resulted in a really good project here as we're presenting to you tonight. This exhibit is one of the intern isn't the latest and greatest, as Mr. Smith has stated, but this shows most of the infrastructure that I'll discuss, and minor detailed changes that have been made. I will explain those in a little bit. So for starters, I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. If there's any questions, feel free to ask me. I can get into as much technical detail as you want. I will try to keep it on the surface and try to stay away from numbers as much as I can. So basically, as we're looking at the site, the existing natural conditions of the site, most of this site drains to this wetland body here. Interestingly enough, the pond is higher than the site, so there is no runoff from the project site to the pond. The actual areas here drain out on the easterly property line out this way. Again, the majority of the site drains towards this wetland pocket. And there's a small area that's out here that drains towards Route 1. Certainly as part of our design and grading and drainage, we try to emulate as much as we can the natural drainage patterns. So in doing so, what we have done with this project is we have designed a surface stormwater management basin located here, which will discharge here and drain into the wetlands. And we have a subsurface system over here for these pavement areas, which again, discharge here towards the wetlands. Our stormwater management system incorporates hooded catch basins, as well as hydrodynamic separators prior to discharge into either the subsurface or the surface basin. So then after the hydrodynamic separator, it discharges into a sediment forebay for this basin into these subsurface chambers here for detention. There's low, very high bedrock in the area, so we provided an under drain system for the detention basins, both basins, to make sure they drain in time. And again, we have an average reduction in peak runoff from the site of around, I'm looking for the number now, I believe it's 8%. Yes, so our average for the storms we analyze is around 8% reduction. We don't want to reduce it too much. We try to keep it as close to pre-existing conditions as possible. And certainly we have the water quality features in place to protect the resources. Then again, touching on the grading, we don't have any slopes proposed that are steeper than 3 to 1. Here, these slopes all through here are 3 to 1, as well as out front, and certainly inside the parking areas are much less. They're around 3% to 5% within the parking areas. And we've also included in the design, certainly as required, is a detailed erosion and sediment control plan designed in accordance with DEP standards to protect the resources during construction. And as part of the processes, before I get into our changes, let me take a quick step back, and utilities basically will be all public utilities. Water, sewer will be taken from this location here in the street and brought directly to the building, as well as electric in the same vicinity. As part of our project design and moving forward, we did the steep slope analysis. The only place on the site where we have slopes in excess of 25% is this little tiny triangle up here in the north corner. The rest of the site is less than 25%. And certainly as we're all aware, we reduce all our calculations based on a reduction of steep slopes and wetland area from the site. So on the site plan, all of our calculations for coverage, calcs to meet the regulations and so forth, obviously are these reduced areas. As part of section 6.8, we're also asked to look at any potential rock removal, which here in exhibit 4, we show where our cuts based on our geotechnical report. We anticipate encountering some rock up in this northern drive area. And then in only this portion of the building foundation do we anticipate encountering rock. And again, we have the areas and associated volumes with these calculations that we anticipate requiring rock removal as part of this development. Another aspect is the tree survey that we conducted. So basically, we went on site with a GPS unit and located every tree with a 12-inch and larger diameter as measured at breast height. So as you can see, all of these trees that are shown here by the symbol are all the trees we located. Everything outside of our limited disturbance will be protected and remain protected, sorry about that. And we included the tree protection detail just for a reminder. This is also going to be included in the site plan set for the contractor. We have a few trees down here which we're able to maintain. Unfortunately, this 24-inch oak is right in the sidewalk. If the commission deemed we wanted to keep this tree, we could always reroute this sidewalk around the tree. We just kept it simple and made it a straight line, as atypical with sidewalks. For the most part, unfortunately, a lot of the trees, most of the trees are within our limited disturbance. We located a total of 41 trees, and we proposed 10 to be remain and be protected as part of this project. So more recently, we have provided to Mr. Smith this exhibit plan EXH6 to depict a couple new additions that the plans that we submitted previously and that the commission has in their packets does not reflect everything that's on this plan. We have a couple minor additions here. We originally had the building footprint. I'll take a step back and show you. This really represented the roof line, which, as Mr. Smith said, it didn't really seem to match the architectural plans. So we modified it here to show more the indentations for the front entryway and ignoring the roof line in this area. We also have shown the additional doorways. So every doorway now has an access and egress point and a connection. These ones out back here will be more in a grassed area, so we're not planning on providing a sidewalk for them, but certainly anything out in the front and this side, we provided sidewalk connections for them. We've also, some of the additional changes that we have made is we've included a bike rack here in the front of the building. And we also have the detail on the plans. And we also provide a location for 2 future EV charging stations for 2 vehicles here. We located them in the front of the building. So, you know, simple access for the electrical circuits to get to these charging stations when they are installed in the future. And those are the basic latest changes to the plans. We've updated the coverage calcs for the minor change in foundation area, changed the actual building to 35,942, which wasn't much of a change. So the coverage calcs, it did not affect them at all. They're still at 13% as a rounded number. So there wasn't much of a change there. Outside of that, we've diligently gone through section 6.8 to make sure we've touched base with any of the potential concerns in there. We'd be happy if there's any sections that the commission or the public has a specific interest in. We can certainly get into more detail with those. Certainly for the most part, some of the ones that jumped out to me would be there is no planned outdoor storage for the project. There is no fixed machinery associated with the project. Stockpiles and so forth as part of the erosion control plan are certainly located as far away from the wetlands and as a natural resource as possible. And all the other aspects as far as the max slope and rocks and what have you, we've certainly incorporated them into the project plans. Marjorie touched on the hours of operation. And again, we comply with all the sections of 6.8, including the trees and ground cover. We certainly try to maintain them to the maximum extent possible with grading and so forth required for this building, certainly within the LOD. As you could see from the tree locations, there really weren't any that could be saved. We tried to regrade in this area to save this one here, but we weren't able to get the grading for that to work, so that it really didn't seem plausible. to try to have a tree well that's so deep, it's likely not going to work. And now we have a tree right next to a new building that we need to take down at a later date. So unfortunately, as I said, we weren't able to save any of the trees within our limited disturbance due to the grading that we're proposing to make this site work for us. That's all I have for grading and drainage and technical. One last piece I would like to discuss and just point out to the commission as we're looking at this plan, and again, I apologize that we didn't get this in time to you for your packet. Highlighted here is the Route 1 right-of-way line. Up in the northern portion of the site, it's a normal width right-of-way, and which, you know, it is typical. And we're not sure why, but as we come south here in the site, you can see the right-of-way line comes quite far off Route 1. So there's a fairly substantial piece of land here that is state-owned land. So we are limited as to what we can propose in this area. Certainly we're allowed to have access points, but I mean, as far as any potential landscaping or what have you, anything we propose in here is subject to DOT review and approval before we could show anything on the site plans and guarantee that we would be able to do that work. So again, this fairly significant piece of property is state property and not on our property. So we are subject to DOT for that. Outside of that, I will pass the presentation over to Pat to discuss traffic. Pat, if you would like to discuss traffic, I will zoom in onto your slides.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. For the record, my name is Pat Padlo. I am a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut, as well as professional traffic operational engineer. I will be very brief. I'll talk to some of these slides as they have been already mentioned both by Chris and Jeff. So the property is located on the proposed development is located on 6.9 acres of the property. The proposed development is about 35,000 square feet of research development building. And the key elements for my analysis were vehicle accommodations such as 131 parking spaces, including 6 handicap spaces, and the fact that the site is located on the town line, as well as more importantly on the state route, US Route 1. So for the analysis, the purpose of traffic impact study or any development is to determine the impacts on the adjacent roadway network, and if there are any recommendations or mitigations as needed. When we analyze any proposed development, we look at the existing condition, no build condition, meaning future year when this development is being considered but not built yet, how the roadway behaves, and build conditions with the proposed development in the future years. Periods for this study that we've considered were weekday AM during commuter time, as well as weekday PM during commuting time as well. So for the data collection efforts, we've decided to include 3 intersections. One of them is the roundabout intersection, as you can see. Then we also looked at the site or the intersection with Evergreen Woods development, and also the Goldsmith Road. All of these intersections are unsignalized and are significant to our study. The data collection efforts were done in May of this year, as well as September to supplement our already existingly obtained counts. In addition, we also utilized Connecticut DOT counts, historical counts to ensure that there is no COVID factor that we needed to account for. Next slide, please. So in order to understand how much traffic is being generated by the proposed development, we utilize ITE Trip Generation Manual, 11th edition, that provides us with trip rates. So during any peak time, it provides us with some counts. And during AM timeframe, it estimates that there will be 38 vehicles coming and going out of the site, and then 36 vehicles in the PM. So I like to give it like a rough estimate. Think of it in terms of there's about 2 vehicles every, there's about 1 vehicle every 2 minutes that will be coming out of the site during those peak hours. Next slide. Thank you. So as I've mentioned, we looked at 3 locations. None of them are signalized. One item, 2 things that I want to highlight is the fact that we are dealing with a roundabout yield approach, as well as the fact that Goldsmith Road has limited access for through trucks, and it's also a dead end street. Next slide. So in order to do a proper analysis, we utilize a software called Synchro 11, and it provides us with calculated delay, volume to capacity ratios, but more importantly, it assigns a letter grade to how well any intersection performs. So A means good, like in your normal school times, and F means there's congestion. So for level of service A, vehicles observe less than 10 seconds of delay. And for level of service F, for unsignalized intersections or approaches, any vehicle may experience about a minute of delay. Next slide. So looking at those 3 intersections, all of the level of services are in the range of A to C, meaning that most vehicles experience less than 10 seconds of delay, upwards of half a minute delay. Next slide. So in conclusions, there's hardly any impact coming from this proposed development into Route 1 as well as Goldsmith Road. Few of our recommendations or observations that we always make is essentially looking at the driveway, and as it's pointed out at the site plan, we want to make sure that we install stop bars, double yellow center lines, and ensure there's clear sight lines coming out of the driveways when looking at US Route 1 or Goldsmith Road. Thank you. That's all. Oh, maybe that slide I can also point it out. So one more thing, based on OSTA standards, this is a state route. This project is on the state route, so we will have to go through an encroachment permit. However, it does not meet major traffic generator triggers. The building square footage does not exceed 100,000 square feet. We do not provide more than 200 parking spaces, nor do we provide 100 residential units or more. So again, we don't trigger OSTA major traffic generator. And also by OSTA standards and ITE standards, a major development is one that generates more than 100 trips or 50 or more left turn trips. Out of, as you recall from one of the earlier slides, the proposed development generates at most 40 trips in any peak time. Thank you.
Okay, next I would like to bring Mr. Wayne Violet forth to discuss the landscaping plan. Wayne, if you would like to speak on this, please.
Yes, thank you, Jeff. Good evening, commission members. My name is Wayne Violet, Senior Landscape Architect with BL Companies. Please let me know if you're having any difficulties hearing me, or if you would like anything repeated, be more than happy to do so. During my talk tonight, I'm going to be speaking to the landscape plan, our approach, and our compliance with code, as well as the site lighting plan. The exhibit that you see on the screen, as was mentioned earlier, is a new exhibit and was prepared for this evening's festivities. So you do not have this in a packet, nor was it previously submitted. There's no content changes, but there are some imagery and some colors added. We think sometimes that adds to the presentation, just seeing some color. So I'm going to first talk about the landscape plan and go kind of code item by code item to ensure compliance in our approach. So we first looked at front yard landscaping for the particular property, as has been mentioned. We're along Route 1. We've got that very kind of interesting narrow and wide right-of-way area, as Jeff was alluding to earlier in the presentation. So for our front yard landscaping, between the proposed parking area and the right-of-way line, not the road necessarily, but the right-of-way line, our front yard basically varies between 10 and 50 feet wide. That particular zone on our parcel, we are planting with canopy trees, a shrub or hedgerow of plantings along that front parking field. Although our parking area is approximately 5 or 6 feet above Route 1 as far as elevation. It was a comment made by the town to, add some additional landscaping and shrubs along the parking area, and we totally agreed with. We thought that was a fantastic idea. We incorporated that in one of the latest rounds of the landscape plan. So again, front yard landscaping, canopy trees. In total, we have 16 canopy trees along our front yard area. We've got a shrub hedge along the parking area that'll help screening with some of the headlights potentially coming into Route 1, even though we are elevated a bit. And it was mentioned, we had conducted a tree survey for the property. We reviewed the frontage area as well as the remainder of the site. Although there is vegetation between the parking area, our site and Route 1, much of that vegetation is under 12-inch in caliper. There are some hardwood species in there, oaks, maples, elms, even in that particular zone. Where we're outside of our grading limits, we'd like to see that vegetation remain. It's going to provide some filtered screening for this particular site. So we're showing that to remain, again, within the right-of-way. So some of that vegetation in front yard area is going to benefit for some of the existing vegetation that's there today. Regarding planting bed and foundation plantings, it's a code requirement to have a minimum of at least 25% of the building foundation have a landscape presence. Great thing about this particular layout and how we've situated is we're proposing a front landscape bed between the building and parking area that basically ranges to be about 15 feet in width. We have that from a planting scheme occupied by a maintained lawn area, as well as a foundational planting scheme. We're using native plantings, if not completely on the site, in majority, and many of those native plantings are proposed in that building foundation scheme between the building and the parking area. Regarding the parking area landscape, we do comply with parking lot islands every 15 feet or less, 15 parking spaces that is, or less. We do have landscape islands as well as trees within those islands. We're looking for a well comprehensive parking area that functions, but also provides shade and canopy above. So we are providing canopy trees throughout the parking area on the interior, as well as around the perimeter of the parking area. In addition to the frontage, we are providing perimeter canopy trees. I had talked a little bit about, and Jeff had talked a little bit about the existing significant trees, 12 inches and larger on site. There's at least 10 that we're proposing to remain. And one last piece to the landscape plan, as I'm just touching upon here, is the stormwater management area to the rear of the site. We are vegetating that basin bottom. We're establishing with a wet seed mix. The wet seed mix will be comprised of wet tolerant plantings, including sedges, rushes, that type of thing to really dominate and occupy the bottom of the basin. Slopes and low maintenance areas on site. We are proposing a meadow seed mix or a low maintenance slope seed mix. That'll be comprised of wildflower, ornamental grasses, native grasses, things that will really do well in a low maintenance type of situation. Where we have high visibility or front yard areas, we are establishing with a typical lawn. So that's a little bit of an overview for the landscape plan. We did provide the imagery on the exhibit on the left-hand side of the exhibit, just to give you a little bit of a flavor of some of the plant material we're using. As I mentioned a little bit, we are nearly exclusively using all native planting, which is a great place to be. One exception is with one of our ground covers, the fairy bells, but that is locally adapted and well used. But other than that, all other plant material is local, is native, is going to provide a great palette for this particular site. I'm going to transition next to site lighting plan, and as everyone had said, I'm sure we'll answer any detailed questions afterwards. But to talk a little bit about site lighting, our site lighting is accomplished utilizing two types of fixtures. We have pole-mounted fixtures. In total on site, we have 16 pole-mounted fixtures, and I should say again, the exhibit that is shown on the screen is not included in any previous packages. There's no content changes, but we've just provided some imagery and some highlights on the plan to help read during this presentation. So again, we have pole-mounted fixtures, 16 on site. They are highlighted in yellow. The pole-mounted fixtures are 23 feet in height. They are LED fixtures and would be dark sky compliant. Those are located along the front parking field and the parking field at the lower end of the page or southern end of the site. In addition to the pole-mounted fixtures, we have wall-mounted fixtures. 14 of those are located on 3 sides of the building, which is the western facade, northern facade, and eastern facade. They range from 10 to 18 feet in height where they'd be mounted on the building. And similar to the pole-mounted, they are LED fixtures, dark sky compliant. For the wall-mounted fixtures. We do want to indicate the site lighting plan that has been submitted indicates 0 light spill beyond our property. That includes anywhere near the neighbors or anywhere into the wetland system. So no light spill on the property. We are getting the coverage that we're looking for as far as average foot candles in the parking areas and pedestrian zones, but no light spill beyond the property limits. So that's a quick overview of landscape plan, site lighting plan. I'm sure we'll answer questions later, but for now, I'm going to pass the speaking baton to Kristen to talk a little bit about architecture on this site. Thank you.
Thanks, Wayne. So I'm Kristen Robbins. I'm a senior project manager with BL Companies and a licensed architect in the state of Connecticut. And so for this program, as Jeff already mentioned, the building footprint is just under 36,000 square feet. And we have 2 major program components to it. The research and development component, which is the area on the right. It's the larger part of the program. And then the administrative wing, offices, accounting, marketing department that supports the research and development. And then in between, we have a central core that serves both program components with a lunchroom, restrooms, a large lobby space for gatherings, and large boardroom for meetings between the administrative and research and development teams. I think, Jeff, if you want to go to the next. So overall on the exterior of the building, we do have our building height under the required 40 feet. What we looked at was a mix of the New England style, but more in a contemporary way. So on our administrative wing, we're looking at the pitched roof with hardy siding, more of a residential feel, and the right-hand side being heavy timber, some natural stone pulling from some of the materials of some of the buildings around the town, and kind of like a tree-like structure, and breaking up the facade both in heights and the lengths of it. And then on that side, mixing some of the metal panel and glazing to give a more contemporary feel for the activity that goes on in the building, the research and development and exploring new ways and new materials. So it's I'm the short spiel of what we're going for the look. So I can pass it over to Marjorie.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is the proposal. Do you have questions?
Chuck Anderson, thank you, Ms. Shansky. Just one quick question. I know it's a research and development use. Can you just give us a feel as to what the products are? Or, if someone wanted to say, what are they doing there? I mean, is there some shorthand lay understanding that we could?
It's technology based, Mr. Chairman. So these are creation of software and instrumentation for diagnostic medical purposes. So it's a technology-based company.
Sure. Would it be, would you describe it as a biotech type of use or?
You know, early on, that's what I called it, and I was corrected many times. It's medtech.
MedTech, okay, great. Thank you, Ms. Shansky. At this point, we'll turn it over to Harry, our town planner, to review the staff report. Harry? Did we lose Harry? Harry, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I couldn't see my unmute button because of the screen share for a second. Harry Smith, Town Planner. Many of the comments in my staff report at this point, based on the presentation, are probably moot, but I'll run through them quickly anyway, since the commission's got the staff report and the applicant team has it as well. So I'll just share my screen and run through that quickly. But before I do that, and maybe I missed it in terms of the transportation and traffic study presentation, I know you had a short list of recommendations at the end that were in the traffic study. And I believe you might have mentioned them, but could you just summarize them quickly again, and if you don't mind?
Sure, I don't have them in front of me right now, that slide, but essentially it matches the site plan. So we always restate what the site plan has when it connects to the actual state roadway or any roadway. So we state the fact that you need a stop bar, you need a stop sign, you need to ensure you have sight lines. That's all.
Okay, I mean, when I get to that part of my comments, maybe I'll just, and we do have a memo from the town engineer that I believe was sent to the applicant team. And I think he focused on the few recommendations you had.
Right.
And I'll just pull that up. And if you have any comments on it, maybe you feel free to jump in at that point, just to make sure we're not off base in any way.
Of course.
Okay, given all that, let me. So hopefully you can all see my screen, which should be the staff report prepared for this meeting. One thing I just want to clarify quickly what's on top of my head is the number of parking spaces. On the site plans, it says there are 125, and the traffic study said 131. I'm guessing the differential there is the 6 handicap parking spaces, which looks like they were included in the count for the traffic study, but were not included in the 125 count cited on the site plans. Does that sound right? Typically, we do on the regulatory level include them. We don't differentiate between the number of handicap spaces and the number of non-handicap spaces. So the total on the site physically is 131. Is that right? I see a nod. So I'll take that as a nod for the whole team. Okay. So moving along here, the steep slope information, I must have just missed that. What was on the revised plan, so I apologize. And we did receive the architectural plans that were talked about. The traffic study we've talked about. Let's see, there's no real concerns with any of these things anymore in terms of the, there's no signage proposed at the moment. The zoning standards. I have not frankly checked the last revised plan to see if this has been addressed, so it's a minor item. I believe it has. So double check that afterwards. The landscaping, along with comments from the section, the zoning regulations on townwide design considerations. Frankly, I just want to employ the landscape design to start out with. It's chock full of natives. I think you've been attentive and responsive to the requirements in the regulations, as well as my comments about providing some additional screening of the headlight glare along Route 1. My comments really were pointed to the swath of vegetation along Route 1 and wondering what that consists of, what it looks like, what the presentation of the site will be from the highway. That is I think of a concern in the townwide design standards, and I'd frankly be interested in your opinion as a landscape architect, Wayne. What this will look like, if there's any, making that vegetation work with your site design and your canopy trees and everything else. If there's clearing that's potentially useful, helpful. I mean, I do appreciate the screening and buffering, and I think that's great. But, if there's anything, that would enhance the site in terms of its presentation to Route 1, that's kind of what I was trying to get at. And there also is a requirement in, or, a statement in section 6.14 of the townwide design standards about utilizing and incorporating trees larger than 4 inches in diameter into the site design. So that's where all that was coming from. And I'll just leave that out there. Maybe there can be some comment on that afterwards. I appreciate the inventory about the significant trees. It is unfortunate. Most of them will need to be removed. I guess the total number probably includes the number in the Guilford property, I'm guessing, since they were on the significant tree inventory. And so that, unfortunately, if you look at it just on the Branford side, a lot of them, the vast majority are going, unfortunately. I would just throw this out there as a comment, whether there are additional parking spaces, or, excuse me, I think it's about 20, so there's 26 parking spaces above the number that's required for the building as is proposed now. And I will take some ownership of this, because I know I mentioned at a preliminary meeting that you folks collectively may want to add a little bit extra parking to accommodate some potential rework of the interior space to office, for example. And also on the plan are noted two, not significantly large, but 2 areas where the building could be expanded that would require some additional parking spaces. So maybe someone could talk about whether the 36 really is tailored to that, or it's just the number that's desired by the applicant. That kind of comes into play a little bit here, in that, if there are some areas where, upon second thought, hey, we could get away with not building these few parking spaces and possibly save a significant tree or two, given, the requirements of the grading. I know that, once you start doing the grading, some of these tree level, where the trees are might be a few feet below ground or above or whatever, and that would just not work out very well. So maybe someone could speak to that as well. Again, we talked about the parking, well in excess. I put 125 down here because that was figure on the site plan, so that should be 131. The bike parking, I think it was noted that that's been added to the revised plans that frankly I have not seen yet. We've got the full traffic study. Again, I will move quickly here. See if I can do this to the town engineer's comments. Can people see the town engineer's comments now? Great, okay. So these are the 3 recommendations from his viewpoint that were in the conclusions section of the traffic study. And I did, for the record, send this afternoon an excerpt from the traffic study, which included the conclusions, as well as this memo to the all the commission members. So hopefully some of you get to see this. So I think it was mentioned by the in the presentation previously, double yellow center line at all site driveways. I think that's currently shown as single white. Site curb cut opposite the drive for Evergreen Woods should line up directly with that. Cross Route 1 is what I'm getting out of this. Oh, seeing a hand, so.
For the record, Pat Padlow, traffic engineer. Yep. Just to clarify this, it is not exactly aligned in the traffic terms. When we look at traffic operations, when the offset is less than vehicle length or 2 vehicle lengths, we don't consider it as being not opposite. The software is incapable of analyzing that kind of offset, minute offset. So in our terms, we treat it as opposite.
Okay, so as sort of a traffic layperson, you are not necessarily recommending that they line up exactly. It's just that you can't give us any real evaluation of that because of the software limitations.
Exactly.
Okay.
Software is limited that it has to be more than 50 feet or thereabouts of an offset in order for us to recognize it as a distinct segment or an offset. Otherwise, it's just considered as across from each other, opposite from each other. So I will, what I am proposing is, if I can, I will edit the traffic report to reflect a better description of that intersection.
Okay, I mean, that would be useful. Given what you just said, I'm not sure for the record we absolutely need it, but that would certainly be helpful. But let me just try to, from my understanding, be clear. So the only real two recommendations that would change what's on the site plan would be the first one and the last one.
The vegetation, it's just a standard. I think it's already shown, it already shows that, you know, there's some clearances happening as part of the site building. So I don't think there's needed. But for the record, we always state it. It's a good practice to state that we want to ensure that there are sight lines, and there are. And if there is anything in the way, we should clear those out.
Okay, and this would again be at the intersection of the existing intersection of Goldsmith Road and Route 1. So it would be within the right of way of Route 1.
That is correct. And it has to go through OSTA as well.
Right. So this would be part of the encroachment permit to do any additional clearing. Okay. So, I mean, I'll just leave this out. Hopefully there's no concern, but let me know, applicant team, if you are concerned with, because frankly, when I get down to proposed finding and conditions, I included 1, 2, and 3 here, or, you know, the 3. So I think it would eliminate the middle one and probably leave the other 2. And I think there was a further recommendation about an additional site driveway to come out at the roundabout. Or am I missing something? It's out of town anyway, so we just leave it on the table. It's nothing to do with this application or proposal. So, okay. Going back to my comments. This comment was not fully addressed. I did not see it on the revised sheet. And I'll see if I can go to a sheet in the plans to show this. So everyone should be able to see the 3 tables and the site layout. Yes? Okay. So what the comment had to do with, thank you for the sidewalk along Route 1. That is the entire frontage of the property. That's great. The remaining comment that was not addressed was to take a walkway into the site along where my cursor is flowing, and to link up with this walkway here and over here. So you'd be able to walk out of the building along this walkway, walk down here to access the sidewalk along Route 1. So hopefully that would look like it would work to me in terms of grades, as we just follow the driveway out to Route 1. So that was the other piece of the comment I didn't see addressed yet, unless I missed something in the presentation. Bicycle parking was addressed. The lights, I did not, you know, in most major ways, the lights are fine and address the requirements of the regulations, with the exception of, despite the fact that you have 0 light spill in terms of foot candles, we have a standard of direct light visibility off property. And with the pole height being 23 plus the 5-foot differential in grades between the parking lot and the pole location and Route 1, I think there's potential for, in the proximity, some direct light and potentially some potential annoyance to cars, and you know, pinpoint LED diode light is different than the old style lights. And so I did get on the website for the manufacturer of the lights, and they do offer this extreme cutoff optic. So I just suggest that as something could be added. It basically reduces the amount of light being thrown behind the pole. In this case, it would be towards Route 1 or towards the wetland. And it would just, you know, enhance that drop in the light level and reduce any potential glare, hopefully. So that would be my suggestion. And that's essentially the comment, having a house side shield, suggestion to reduce the amount of light being thrown back from the building. I don't know how reflective that surface is or would be. And again, it's not very close to any of the boundaries of the property, so this is more of a suggestion than anything else. Grading we covered, so we do have a statement on the record, nothing steeper than 3-on-1. Blasting, I don't remember any discussion about this in the presentation. Not clear if anything will be needed for the rock removal, so maybe someone can clarify that later on. Because we do have the volumes and locations of the rock removal, but I don't know if all that or any of that would require blasting. Drainage and stormwater control, I think that's all been addressed. Town engineer did not have any further comments. I did talk with him verbally, and he suggested using this condition, which the commission has imposed previously, to basically make sure the stormwater management system is maintained on an ongoing basis. So just wanted to include that in the report to give everyone a heads up about it. The erosion sedimentation control plans, I believe these are the same that were approved by inland wetlands. Staff would recommend an ENS bond be established. And I just talked about the townwide design criteria. I think the building certainly meets that in terms of its presentation and design. And the wetlands has approved this. There's no proposed outdoor storage of materials that I can see. I believe the conflict has been resolved between the two sets of plans in terms of the footprint of the building. And what's left here is the future building expansion. So I'm concerned that leaving that in the plans creates some confusion as to whether that expansion is approved or not. If the applicant wants that, I would suggest identifying as a full phase 2 and have another sheet that shows how that would affect the grading and wall-mounted lighting and anything else. And to clarify that, this is the square footage. There are enough excess parking spaces to handle the parking needs of that additional building area. So I have actually proposed some conditions and a finding, which I could go through now, or I could wait until the public hearing's closed. But if I do it now, at least the applicant could respond to them. Some of them are probably not necessary at this point because of the presentation you just heard. I would suggest probably just leaving them all in just so for clarity's sake, so I don't have to be concerned about deleting something I shouldn't have or what have you. Based on my memory of everything that was just mentioned in the presentation. So does that make sense to just go ahead and run through them, or how do you want to do this?
Chuck Anders here. Harry, I mean, you raised a number of questions in here about the expansion and so forth. It might make sense to get the applicant's response through the conditions. And I don't know if we want to do that right now. Does Ms. Chancey, do you want to respond to while we're on it, because we may lose track of things once we start opening up.
Marjorie Shansky for the record. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I defer to you. We're prepared to address some of the questions that Harry has asked.
Why don't we do that? Just to maybe cover some of these technical things. Sure. And then we'll continue.
Well, I'm going to start, and then I'm going to throw it over to Jeff or Chris or both. On the issue of that continuous walkway to Route 1, which Mr. Smith said he didn't hear anything about this evening. You did not hear anything about it this evening. Certainly happy to connect the building to the parking areas in the way that the condition on page 3 of 6 in your draft report suggests, or your draft recommendation suggests, but extending the sidewalk to Route 1, my client just doesn't think that there's any utility in that because nobody is arriving on foot for this use. And nor does he necessarily want to create an invitation to arrival from Route 1 by somebody not affiliated with the business. So we'll defer to you and the wisdom of the commission, but in all other respects, the connections are happy to be made, and I am requesting for consideration of not including that last extension to the Boston Post Road or East Main Street. And then Chris, Jeff.
Good evening. For the record, Jeff Dewey with BL Companies. Very good points, Mr. Smith, and I'd like to, if I may, share my screen. It'd be easier for me to present that way and answer your concerns.
Sure, go right ahead. Harry Smith, Town Planner.
Thank you. Everybody can see my screen. So let's start with the trees, trying to save trees. And we did make an effort to try to save as many trees as we could. As you can see, a lot of these trees are in parking areas or grading areas where we could, like this 18-inch oak, there's very little grading in this area and it ends here. So we were able to save both of these 18-inch oaks. Unfortunately, this 18-inch elm, for example, is right on the edge of pavement. These are within the roadway. And the way they're arranged, it would be really hard. Even if we move this access way, we're going to be going through trees almost any which way we dice it. In looking at the grading plan as well for some of these trees that are over in here, I'll switch to the grading plan. As you can see, we have a fill slope all the way through here. So certainly it would be very difficult. It'd be a sizable tree well. That said, we do have, and I mentioned this 18-inch oak here to be removed. There is the possibility, so if we look, we are in approximately 3 feet of fill in this area. And to me, that raised a concern with saving the tree with its proximity to the building and being in 3 feet of fill. If the commission deemed it appropriate, we could propose to save this 18-inch and design a 3-foot deep tree well to protect it. And hopefully it would survive. This tree here on the corner is also, again, this is elevation 165 to 162. It's in a drainage area, but we could reroute the drainage and again do another 3-foot tree well. Again, our concerns are it being the proximity to the building, but we can attempt to save, in going over the trees with installing tree wells, we could probably attempt to save 3 or 4 more trees. And if the commission deems that's appropriate, we'd be more than happy to do so. As far as the blasting, so we have, again, the quantities we talked about, and these are just rough estimates from the boring reports. Whether or not it's going to actually require blasting or if it's rippable rock, we really won't know until we do the excavation and expose the material. This may be fragmented bedrock, and they can't tell when they do the borings. If it is fragmented with an excavator, they may be able to just pull out the material needed to be pulled out and not require blasting. However, it's always a possibility that it requires blasting. And in our standard plan notes, just so the commission is aware, is it this? No, it's supposed to be the EC plan. We have, that's landscaping, our standard blasting requirement notes. So it must be on the GN sheet. So we do have blasting and crushing notes that requires a pre-blast survey, sampling. Our standard is a 1,500 foot radius for if we do require blasting. So these are pretty standard blasting note requirements. But we can't really nail down the quantity or whether or not we will. It's not a lot of rock, and it might be rippable rock, as I mentioned before. I can try to nail down a estimate, or we could just conservatively say it will require blasting if that's deemed appropriate. And as far as the future expansion, so on our site plan modifications exhibit, which will be our current site plan, we removed any reference to future expansion. So there will not be any references to future expansion on the site plan moving forward. And lastly, I believe the comment was with regard to lighting and including an additional beyond full cutoff. And I apologize, I forgot the terminology, Mr. Smith. That was a great research you did. And I'm sure our client would be more than happy to purchase the additional feature to assure that the light luminaire itself is not visible. I believe that addresses the outstanding concerns. I'm not sure if I've missed anything. I hope not.
Chuck Anders, Chair. I think Harry mentioned one question that the amount of parking exceeded what was required in our regulations. And was that just a client preference, or I think that related to the future expansion? But so where did you come down on that? Because you could also hold parking in reserve if it's not needed in terms of the amount of parking.
It's my understanding that the parking, even though it's in excess per the calculations, this building does not really fit exactly into the town's parking calculations. So our client requested this amount of parking. The potential to reduce it may be a possibility, and we could reserve some area for future parking as needed if that was the commission's preference. But again, as I said, is our client in designing the site had requested this amount of parking for his use and knowing how his business works and the requirements to support it.
Okay. Harry, did you have any follow-up stuff?
Harry Smith, Town Planner. I did, just to follow up with that, propose something in the conditions that would, at the applicant's discretion, allow them to build fewer than the 131 spaces and label them to be built in the future or what have you. So that may be one way to consider disposing of it, since it is the client's preference. And I don't believe we have a regulation other than for retail development that allows the commission to limit the number of parking spaces, other than, I guess, at a very, large extreme that may be found in conflict with the special exception criteria, what have you. But this seems to, fall within all the other parameters. It doesn't exceed lot coverage or any other limitations in the regs. So this is what the client wants to propose and build. So I don't know how you want to proceed. You want to go through any additional comments that the commission members may have or members of the public, and then I can go back to the conditions before the hearing is closed. So the
Yeah, let's do that.
Talk about that. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone wants to speak, but we'll give them a chance. People said, let's start with other members of the commission. Questions, comments from members of the commission.
Marcy, here. Can you hear me?
Marcy, yeah, and then Sharon can follow. Yeah.
Yes, I had a couple of questions. With the traffic study, and I know it's not a primary, let me see if I can word this correctly. I know it's not intensive user as far as OSHA and all that, but I am aware of some future developments being proposed in Guilford, just down the road near Tractor Supply. I was just curious if that had been considered in your counts, or if they really OSHA really reviews it on a first come, first served type basis. So that was one question. Another question I had was really about the quantity of parking relative to the staff, and could we minimize that and just approve it for future use, but defer building it until which time they really would be using it. And the third thing was, I didn't hear mention of electric charging stations, which I do think is going to be an important trend to take care of as far as the energy conservation rules that are coming out. And that was basically relative to traffic. And then I think just a general question around the trees, just to get a handle on the number of large trees that you need to remove versus the number of shade trees that are coming back in. Are they roughly equal? Because I do think that a 3-foot deep tree pit would be excessive. So I'm looking at it in terms of, are the number of large trees that we're losing because of the development basically offset by the new shade trees that are going in? And hopefully that's it for now.
Chuck Anderson, Chair, thank you, Marcy. Does the applicant want to address those questions? Or I think there are about 4 of them there. So
I would, Marjorie Shansky, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I would ask Ms. Padlow to talk about the traffic question. I do want to say that in the exhibit provided for this evening, there were 2 electric charging stations proposed near the entry, so they could take advantage of the entry of the electrical system into the building. And then perhaps Mr. Violet can talk about the tree exchange. With respect to the parking spaces, I would simply say that this is a corporate headquarters and that there will be board meetings where there are from time to time, beyond the staff that works there will be that kind of visitor to the building. And I think that was part of the inspiration for having parking for those events or those occurrences. But I'm certainly happy to sit with BL and the client and sort of drill down into what they could live with and call the rest reserve and see how much it can be deferred to some other time. So with that, Ms. Padlow and Mr. Violet.
Pablo BL companies. As our Attorney Shansky mentioned, there are 2 electric stations proposed. However, there are no requirements set by Connecticut DOT for providing any of those. As far as other studies, we have reached out to Connecticut DOT OSTA department to find out if there are any other proposed developments in the area. We also have reached out to the town of Branford as well as town of Guilford because of the close proximity to the border or town line, and try to find out if there are any other developments that we should consider in our study. There were none. And parking, I believe the Ms. Shansky has addressed already. Thank you.
And this is Wayne Violet, BL Companies. In regards to the tree question, there are 40, during our tree survey, there were 40 significant trees that we identified on the submitted plan. As was mentioned earlier, of that 40, approximately 10 are to remain. So simple math, if I can do it, we're about 30 being removed. Now, it just so happens that we have proposed 31 large canopy trees being proposed for the site. So in general, it's a relative wash of a replacement. It's not replacement in caliper, it's a replacement in quantity, and it is similar that way. I did want to make one comment in regards to the tree well concept. They can be very challenging to adequately provide enough space for the tree to these large trees to be satisfactory. If we are attempting to save a tree that happens to be grown in or adjacent to another tree, there's some factors there as well. So the tree wells are a potential, but there's a lot of factors to it. And I would lean towards plant a couple extra trees elsewhere on site than attempt to save a tree, but it's going to be a real challenge and a potential loss of health on the tree in short order. So answer the question longly, it's essentially a wash for large removed trees versus quantity of proposed trees. Thank you.
Chuck Anderson, thank you, Mr. Violet. Marcy, any follow-up? You all set?
No, I do agree with what Wayne had offered. And, you know, although the project isn't, it's soon to be public, I know that BL is working on the project down the street near Tractor Supply, which is potentially a large generator use. So I just was curious if they had factored that in. And I guess really the last question I had is I must have missed what the construction was for the building, whether it's a steel building or what have you. So that would just be my last question. But thank you for those answers.
Ms. Chansky, what type of building? Is it a steel building?
I defer to Marjorie Shansky. I defer to Ms. Robbins.
Hi, Kristen Robbins, BL Companies. I'd say we are leaning towards a metal framed and steel structured building, but we are currently exploring cost and lead times, material availability from any inclusion of masonry in the framing as well.
Thank you. Sharon, you had some questions? Sharon Hutner?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Sharon Hutner. I know that this is not in the regulations, but Branford really cares about sustainability, and we have a Branford Clean Energy Plan on our website if you care to access that. And so I was just wondering if there was any thought about net zero building. We've just almost are putting the finishing touches on a net zero animal shelter that Branford has just completed that we're very proud of. And so I was wondering about that and whether any of those kinds of considerations went into the architectural plans, and whether you know about Eversource having a program where you can, and I just lost the name of the plan, a non-residential renewable energy solutions plan, where you can submit your building plans to them and they can provide ideas for any kinds of energy savings that you can be up for, and also for their incentives as well. So I just would like to remind the people about that.
Chuck and Sharon, thank you, Ms. Hutner. Any response or comments from the applicant?
Marjorie Shansky for the applicant, Ms. Robbins.
Kristen Robbins, BL Companies. We're still reviewing with the client. Net zero has not been a conversation yet, or this Eversource program. Sustainability is something we factor into our design with material, and it will be something we can review with the applicant, the client.
That would be great.
Thank you, Ms. Robbins. Are there other questions, comments from commission members before we open up to the public? Hearing none, then let's open it up to the public. Are there members of the public who wish to comment? Evan, Harry, do you see any members of the public who wish to comment?
I did see one person with their hand up, but it looks like they lowered it. So if anybody would like to participate, down at the bottom of your screen, there's a reactions button. And then you can select and raise your hand to indicate that you would like to participate. It looks like we have Michael Scott who wants to participate.
Michael Scott, 593 Turner Swamp Road, which is the dead end side of Goldsmith Road. I appreciate very much the thorough presentation from the applicant, and also the thoughtful comments from both the town staff and commissioner on this application. I have some questions, and then perhaps one for the recommendation for the application. First is a question about the curb cuts. There are 3 curb cuts proposed on this project, 2 on Route 1 and 1 on Goldsmith. Often on a corner lot, having curb cuts on 2 sides provides some redundancy in case something happens along the way. But given that Goldsmith is in fact a dead-end road that is intolerant to traffic, I'm wondering what that curb cut at Goldsmith serves, and why we couldn't reserve just the 2 curb cuts to Route 1, as many of the parcels along Route 1 have. I did notice in the staff report and in the applicant's response that truck traffic would not be allowed onto Goldsmith, but in general, it would be good to eliminate any traffic on Goldsmith, given its tight nature and dead end nature. At a minimum, I would recommend this commission make it clear as a condition of approval that no truck traffic is allowed on Goldsmith, and then that could be monitored by the neighbors and reported to the zoning enforcement officer. Second is the question about alignment of the curb cuts on Route 1, which was noted by the traffic engineer, the town engineer, excuse me. And I just, to me, the comments, and I did not read the report, but it was something that I flagged when I looked at the application. And to me, the comment goes more beyond what the alignment of the curb cut is labeled, or how the software itself monitors its alignment. I concur with the applicant that this is not a major traffic generator, and I'm not necessarily concerned insofar about that. But the easterly curb cut aligns with an adjacent curb cut across the road from Route 1, which makes good traffic planning and rules of the road sense. However, the westerly one is shifted from the Evergreen Woods entrance exactly by a road width, which makes for an awkward intersection as far as rules of the road. So if 2 cars are opposing one another, one at Evergreen Woods and one at this site, and are both trying to take a lane at Route 1, there's no clear yielding procedure, even if they are both provided with stop bars. If that roadway was brought into alignment with the existing one at Evergreen Woods, then it becomes more of a conventional intersection and much more of a common sense approach. This is important in 2 regards. One is, I feel as though with a minor modification of the applicant's site plan, by bringing the parking to the westerly side of the building and in alignment with the building, that roadway could simply be shifted 20 feet to the east, the alignment be provided, and the same amount of parking spaces be provided to either side of that of the access road. So I feel like it's a tweak to the application, but I think it would go a long way to improve just the common sense function of entering and exiting the site, their site, and how it conforms with existing traffic patterns of people entering and exiting Evergreen Woods and Goldsmith Road. I would remind the commission that this is Route 1, and this is somewhat of a unique stretch of Route 1 insofar as you're coming out of Branford, the signaling drops off. Traffic speed picks up as you're entering Guilford. Right where this site is the beginning of an S curve of Route 1. You're turning one way coming out of Branford, and you're about ready to begin the other curve to enter the new rotary into North Branford. In my experience, traffic doesn't slow down until they reach that second curve. So traffic is moving on Route 1 in a rather spirited speed into this first curve. So as much as simple as we can make it for the residents of Goldsmith and for the applicant's employees entering and exiting the site, I think would be beneficial. I support the town staff recommendation on the site lighting beyond dark sky compliance and zero bleed off the property lines, given the height of the fixtures and that this whole site is built on a plinth. I think your comments about shielding the lamps is a very astute observation of this application. And I certainly appreciate the applicant's quick acknowledgement of that improvement. And then lastly, I also appreciate the applicant's removal of any notation of phase 2. I think that this is a good, more or less by the books, development of this parcel that has long been vacant. It is an important change, I think, to this area of Route 1. And certainly approving phase 1 only is an important measure to allow this commission to be able to revisit this application once we see how the 30,000 square foot building with its 131 parking spaces is functioning before any consideration of future expansion is considered. I think that's the extent of my comments, and I certainly appreciate everyone's time in this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. What else we got? Who else we got? Looks like we got Mr. Maresca. Evan, is that correct? Or...
Yeah, Perry, go ahead, please.
Hi, thank you everyone for hearing me. Perry Maresca, Branford Economic Business and Development Manager. The company that is hoping to build on this site, pending approval from the town, is a medical company in the technology field. It's an established company with a successful track record. It checks all the boxes that have been called for this part of town: biotech, life science, medical field. This 36,500 square foot building will generate minimal traffic. It generates additional taxes, and even more so with the equipment that will be used on site. It's a clean industry, sound, high-paying jobs. The sidewalk along Main Street, minimal impervious surfaces. And as you saw, and as the tweaking that they're saying they will do, they will be using responsible lighting, dark sky fixtures, full cutoff with limited to no light trespass. They're respectful of the inland wetland concerns that are in the area. They talked about the electric charging stations. I believe they are clean, energy friendly, and will make every effort to do that. And with the help of the Economic Development Commission, we will make sure that they have all the tools available through Eversource and other possibilities to work well. And we do have a clean energy committee as well. This is exactly what many in the town have been saying should be put in this area. I trust that the commission will work with the applicant to assure the best solution for all involved and will approve this project. Thank you.
Chuck Anderson, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Maresca. Evan, anyone else? Other members of the public wish to comment?
Just one more time, anyone that would like to participate, down at the bottom of your screen, first use the reactions button, then press raise your hand to indicate that you would like to speak. I do not see anyone at this time.
Okay, thank you, Evan. Okay, so then we're done with the public portion at this time. So I think there were, Mr. Scott raised some questions and had some questions and comments. Does the applicant wish to address those questions? There's questions about the curb cuts, particularly the Goldschmidt, the one off of Goldschmidt, whether the need for that and ensuring that there's no truck traffic if it's needed. And then there's again, the alignment of the intersections with Evergreen Woods.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Marjorie Shansky for the applicant. I will send this back over to Ms. Padlow. I do want to say that the earliest comments back at inland wetland phase from the town engineer inspired the reorientation and narrowing of the Goldsmith Drive entry to be only automobile, what are we called? You know, people vehicles. So I appreciate the inquiry and I defer now to Ms. Padlow on the greater question.
For the record, Pat Padlow, BL companies. Just to reiterate, yes, there is an offset, but we also have to follow some basic rules of the road. So Evergreen Woods is a road versus we are proposing a driveway. So the clear rules of the road are that we would, any vehicles coming out of our driveway would have to give a right of way to Evergreen Woods cars or vehicles.
And Ms. Padlow, I guess, you know, as I understood his comment is that, yeah, it may be right, but why can't you just, I understood him to say you could align it and that seems to be safer and maybe you could just tweak it. Maybe it's overstating it. Maybe it would mess up the whole plan or everything else, but that's what I understood the comment to be, is that generally when you pull out both sides, if you're directly aligned, it's just easier. I mean, do you think that's incorrect, or do you think it's unnecessary, or it would mess up other parts of the plan? Or
I'll pass it over to Jeff Dewey,
right,
as he's raising his hand. Sure. From the site perspective.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you. For the record, Jeff Dewey, BL Companies. More than happy. If I may just share my screen briefly, I will show you the ramifications, because of course we looked at that. So as we can see here, here's the curb cut that we're referring to. Let me just draw a line here coming straight across, roughly the center line at roughly a 90 degree. So you can see, certainly if we tried to center our driveway right here, the mayhem it would cause with the parking lot. There would be no clean, we would lose parking spaces. To make this work, we'd have to adjust parking. We would lose this nice straight alignment for the trucks to come in, whether they're loading and unloading or grabbing the refuse from the dumpster area. So we'd have to allow for the turning movements. That's why, as you can see, we have the larger turning radii here. It would make it a very difficult lineup to come in this way for our parking lot if we align the driveway straight across the street. And it's unfortunate, but that's why we did offset it as we did. I'm not saying we couldn't align it here. We could. It would end up creating, to get the number of parking spaces we're looking for here, we'd end up having more impervious area and more impact overall. So that's why we went with the minor offset to have a reduced pavement area. So I hope that answers the question.
I think I understand the alignment in having the straight line for the trucks to go into the back and that's the turning move. That makes some sense. I guess the question would be, does it present a safety problem if they're not aligned? I suppose that's, you know, the counter, Miss Padlow. I don't, you know, that's more of a traffic issue. Does it present a safety issue?
It's only as safe as people are. It does not. Hopefully they will follow the signs, telling them to stop and look and then take a turn.
Mm-hmm. And then the other general question he asked was, well, why do you need that third entrance? And why do you need an entrance at all off of Goldsmith Lane?
Again, Jeff Dewey with BL Companies. So I'd probably be easier just to, and I apologize, keep sharing my screen and not sharing my screen, but it's just so much easier to have a graphic. So whenever we're laying out a parking lot, what we try to do is separate pedestrians from vehicular traffic. So what this allows us is, as cars are parked here, coming in and out, lunchtime, you have different people coming in and out of the building, getting in their car, going to lunch or what have you. So for people parked over in here, this is an easier way in and out, and it prevents having these cars come back through here, intersecting potential pedestrians coming out to their car for lunch. It's not so much that it's a requirement, but it's more, again, a safety feature to try to separate vehicular traffic from pedestrian traffic.
Okay. Chuck Inster, thank you. Okay. Any further questions from commission, and then we'll get back to Harry going through conditions, I guess. Commission and staff, any further questions? If not, Harry, do you want to go through what you proposed, or?
Sure, Harry Smith, Town Planner. Maybe just touch on a couple of issues, and I could do this through the conditions. Let me just talk about the sidewalk connection first, just since that's the top of my head. And this is my take of where I understand the commission to be, and I'm sure commission members will jump in if they so desire, and they either contradict me or not. That as developments have come in along Route 1, the commission is referred to its plan of conservation development, which has identified pretty much the entire Route 1 corridor as a priority sidewalk area. The sidewalk system along Route 1 is in many places patchwork. Sidewalks have been built that don't necessarily connect to anything. As time has gone on, more and more of those pieces do connect together. And in some locations, they are being filled in. I think the town is actually actively looking at filling in some remaining pieces in West Main Street, for example, which has a lot more sidewalk along it than East Main Street does, for example. This location, of course, is at the extreme end of town. However, I believe a bus line does run through here. I know it runs through Route 1, at least through exit 55, and I believe it runs through here, but I have to double check that. And that's been one of the rationales for doing this, is that you do have some folks who would take the bus, there are bus stops, and that would be, you know, a reason to be able to access the site. Again, just looking towards the future where, you know, development is proceeding. Frankly, I fully expect Route 1 to continue to be developed for one purpose or another in a more dense fashion, and providing pedestrian facilities is something that's been included in the town's plan of conservation development all the way along the stretch right up to the Guilford line. So I'll just throw that out there and see what the commission members, you know, themselves think about it. But that's why we've asked for the sidewalk, which we're happy the applicants put on the plan, but also the ability to utilize it as a way to access the facility. I think is another part of that. So leaving that aside for the moment, I'll go back to the supplemental memo with the staff recommendation I sent around today, and share my screen to run through that. Unless anyone wants to talk about that issue right now.
I understand the issue is you're talking about just linking the public sidewalks, Route 1, a sidewalk into along the driveway in. Is that what you're talking about?
That's exactly right. Correct. Okay. Yeah, and the applicant, as Mashansky has stated, would prefer, I understand, to not have that happen. Because they don't want to necessarily invite the general public in, since this facility is not really for the general public. I stated that right. Okay, well, let me just continue on then. Hopefully everyone can see this. It's dated today, staff recommendation, a simple finding, just stating the compliance with the special exception criteria and the site application requirements of section 9.6. And this was, you know, evidence provided in the application file from Attorney Shansky that this is in fact the case. So she explains that in great detail in her correspondence. So proposed conditions: number one, standard condition, all construction site work substantially follow the plans, except as they may be modified, approval by the commission or staff if appropriate, as consistent with the regulations. Two, some proposed requirements before any construction activity. Sites like this generally require a pre-construction meeting to make sure everything gets off on the right foot. we've included the arborist. I will, determine that at the time, whether that makes any sense, given what we do or don't do about any additional significant tree protection. I think it's pretty clear at the moment. The ones within limited disturbance are primarily going to be taken out, and the ones outside are going to be preserved. So perhaps we don't need an arborist, but we'll see how that shakes out. Construction fencing along limited disturbance lines, so it's clear to the contractor where they are not supposed to go. Installation, cementation, and erosion control measures, and establishment of a soil erosion control financial guarantee. Number 3 would be these couple of items that have to do with the blasting permit. I would suggest at this point that since it's 1,500 feet in the applicant's site plan, that change 250 to 300, or just say as noted and within the area noted on the site plan, one or the other. And again, I don't have, if I can do the Evan mover here and actually pull up the Word document and edit this as we're talking would be preferable. So let me try and do that. Okay, so you should see the same document. We're back to the beginning. So I'm going to scroll down to the 250 and change that to, hopefully that matches what's on the plan, I believe. So, but we'll give the applicant team a chance to double check that before I stop here.
It's within, not with.
All right. Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I think this has already been done, but we can leave this. I would take the statement to be at this point, all debris removed by blasting, unless found practicable to not do that. So we just leave that alone for now. Number 4 would be a number of items that would proposing would need to be addressed before a zoning permit or a building permit is issued. And so you've got the location of the steep slope, which has already been identified, so I can take that out. Further information, I think that we started to get into this today, but probably looking at least some identification of general species of the trees greater than 4 inches. And I'm looking for probably a little bit of dialogue about whether it makes any sense to do some more clearing of some of the underbrush or not. And what kind of, if that would have a positive impact on the presentation of the site, the property, and the development on Route 1. So I'm suggesting leaving this for now. These are the 3 recommendations from the traffic study. So I'm going to propose taking this out at this point. Maybe I'll just highlight it at this point. I think it's clear, but I didn't get any response from the commissioners at this point about what their take is on the information that's been presented in terms of the comment from the resident and the response from the applicant team.
Right. Just highlight it. We can discuss it during deliberation.
Yep. This was discussion about that additional sidewalk area into the property, so I'm going to highlight that also. Bike parking, that's been addressed in the new plans, but I think I'll leave that here just because I frankly don't have those plans. So even though they've been presented tonight. Same thing with the lighting. So this would just leave that in place as a, to check and make sure what we discussed tonight is on the revised plans. Just ask for the full set of plans to be presented with 3 full-size paper copies. I think this has been addressed. We do have the verbal statement on the record, so I'm happy with that. It was stated by 2 professional engineers tonight, so I'll take that out. I don't know if this has been done yet. I don't believe it has, but I don't have revised plans to check. I think we just leave H in for now, just to, make sure that that's on the plans, everything that was stated tonight. I understand this is going away and is off of the revised plans, but again, I don't have those, so I think leave it in place is preferable. These I've already highlighted as two things I wanted to bring up and discuss with the commission. This is something that would basically, at the applicant's discretion, allow them to identify portions of the parking spaces they may want to change to reserve parking. I think this was exactly what we talked about. There is no regulatory statement in the zoning regulations I can see that will allow the commission to mandate this. And given everything that was said tonight, I'm not sure that's even appropriate. So I would at this point propose unhighlighting this, because I think this is clear. And that brings us down to K. I was looking for this DEP guidelines, as frankly, off the top of my head, I could not remember the percentage. I thought it was 10%. As people were talking, I was busy typing, and actually found that I was not completely aware of, but a state law that goes into effect, I believe, in January 1st, 2023, that requires municipalities to require 10% of the parking spaces to be provided with charging stations for parking lots greater than 30 spaces. And I can show you the public act. It is 22-25. But it's not January 1st, 2023 yet. So the applicants offer 2. We have no regulation requiring or providing the commission require anymore. So I would just, suggest that maybe the applicant team could respond to this, and if there's any, and maybe we could tweak this around to provide for the addition of any greater number of electric vehicle spaces beyond 2, or encapsulate the 2 that are offered and encourage any more to be provided. That could be done without some kind of minor site plan amendment. That could just be done by a change to the plan. So I'll leave this highlighted and tweak it around based on what the commission would like to do. Number 5 has to do with items before a CO or a certificate of zoning compliance is issued. This would be a submittal of a financial guarantee to assure survival of plant materials. My understanding of the current statutes about financial guarantees is that they are now limited to 1 year. I think we have 2 years in our regulation, but I think that's been superseded by statute. We can, or not provided, or not required to take a surety bond. So I'm suggesting that this be put in place. We sort of had a rocky summer and had some plantings that were put in, for example, for the Aldi's and the Chase Bank development. Several of those died during the drought in August, and most places do, purchase and have planting materials installed with some kind of warranty period just to cover themselves. But this would do what the commission could do to ensure that the plant materials are kept in place. I would, again, with the 250 feet, let's make it 1,500 here for the post-blast survey and submittal of final as-builts. Number 6 is a standard condition about dust control, and provides for the zoning enforcement officer to have the authority to require dust control as necessary. Number 7 requires ongoing maintenance, survival of landscaping, as a, if this is violated, essentially a zoning violation if you let the landscaping die and don't replace it. Number 8 is sort of a boilerplate condition about lighting. One thing I did not point out in my presentation was changing the correlated color temperature of the light source to a more amber, less blue-white, 3000 degrees Kelvin. We have received in the past a document provided to us by the American Medical Association citing the detrimental effects of blue, white, higher correlated color temperature, LED lighting. So this has been a standard thing the commission's required. 9 is standard condition about no new signage, additional lighting without commission or staff approval. And 10, this is in the regulations. We just sort of put it in here to make sure everyone's aware. The special exception for 6.8 has a 1-year life, unless a 1-year extension is sought and obtained at the end of before the 1-year period expires. Number 11, this has been required by a couple of recent approvals, particularly with sites that have an inland wetland on them. And it's basically a way to keep a check on the contractor in terms of making sure appropriate measures regarding site and soil stabilization are being followed during construction. And I think there's a missing parentheses here. And so provide some monthly reports unless the requirements waived by the ZEO. So this is a good way to make sure we're not needlessly requiring a report. However, should we see conditions, maybe do a report for the first couple months, everything's fine, stop the reports, contractors following procedures, and so forth. Number 12 is this condition that was in the staff report about maintaining the stormwater system per the schedule and the measures as depicted in the manufacturer's recommended requirements. This has been required in a couple of, actually several approvals recently, and helps us comply with our NPDES permit that we have as a municipality. So that's what I have, and I'll stop there and see if there are any questions. Thanks.
Check in, Chair. Thank you, Harry. Does the applicant have any comments or with respect to the proposals that are recommended by Harry?
Marjorie Shansky for the applicant. Mr. Chairman, thank you. We appreciate Mr. Smith's stewardship of this application. We have no comments aside from the earlier comment about that one little piece of connecting sidewalk. We have no comments and are satisfied with the conditions.
Check in, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Shansky. Any further questions, comments by commission members or staff? Then I think we can close this matter as a public hearing then. So thank you very much. And we can discuss this. I think we don't need to keep the public hearing open. I'm just assuming we don't, right? Everyone agree with that? Yes, okay. So we'll close this matter as a public hearing. And this may be something I don't know if we'll act on this evening, but hopefully we can just at least discuss this later and see where we are. So thank you very much. It brings us on. Does anyone want to take a break? It's 9 o'clock, or want to continue? We have one other public hearing. Commission members, you all want to keep going?
For me,
Fine to keep going. It's getting late. I'd rather get.
Sharon Huntner.
Okay, let's keep going. So next public hearing is item number 2, which is Pascal and Barbara Rucco, applicant's owner, 45 Pine Orchard Road. This is a special exception for an accessory apartment. Is the applicant ready to proceed with that one?
Yes, hi, we are. Anthony Thompson, plans ahead, representing the Roccos for this application. The Roccos live at 45 Pine Orchard Road. They are looking and seeking to put an accessory apartment on their home and transfer the ownership of their home to their daughter and her husband. They want to stay in town. We've worked very closely with them the last couple of months to get the apartment satisfactory to the town. Evan's been helpful, and we are seeking the special exception to allow for the accessory apartment on their residence. We did seek a variance last month, which was approved. And the next step in this is the special exception approval.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Evan, do you want to review your staff report?
Yes, thank you. So like Mr. Thompson explained, this applicant is coming in for an accessory apartment approval. They received 2 variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals earlier or in October. And they will also be requesting waiver of the survey requirement. I'm sharing my screen right now. You can see here the existing home and this clouded area is where the accessory apartment will be. Mr. Thompson has shown us some renderings over here, along with some elevations that he has provided. The property is located in the R3 district, and I want to apologize on my staff report. I listed the R3 district's bulk requirements on there. However, this is an undersized lot. And the closest applicable lot area requirement size is from the R1 district. So they do have some smaller setback requirements than what is indicated on the staff report. And most specifically, the 10-foot setback requirement, where the applicant is proposing this new addition to the home where the accessory apartment will be to be exactly 10 feet from that property line. They satisfy the off-street parking requirement, and no lighting information has been provided. However, a condition has been added that would require any proposed lighting to meet the standards from section 6.7. The applicant meets the criteria for accessory apartments from section 7.4. However, from the plans, I wasn't able to determine whether or not the apartment size was less than 900 square feet or under 30% of what the existing unit is. However, Mr. Thompson gave us some further information and confirmed that the proposed accessory apartment will be, I think, around 18 square feet less than 30% of the existing unit. And they also meet the criteria from section 9.8F. And I did alter one of the conditions that was circulated to the Planning and Zoning Commission last week. We do have one finding that the proposed use of the property is consistent with the special exception criteria. And I've underlined the language that I added this week for the first condition. And that is that prior to the start of construction, the applicant shall submit additional plans stamped, sealed, and signed by an appropriate professional, demonstrating that the size of the proposed accessory apartment will be less than 30% of the gross floor area of the principal dwelling unit, and that the addition is compliant with the side setback requirements of section 3.4A to the satisfaction of the town planner or his designee. Condition number 2 is that lighting requirement to make sure that it's compliant with section 6.7 or any proposed lighting is. And then finally, erosion control measures shall be installed to the satisfaction of the zoning enforcement officer.
Chuck Anderson, thank you, Evan. Questions, comments from the commission members or staff before we open up to the public? Hearing none, let's open it up to the public. Any member of the public wish to comment?
Ms. Devine would like to speak.
Yes. Whoops, she's muted, I believe.
You just unmute yourself, Ellen.
There you go. Sorry about that. I have one question about the size of the accessory apartment. I wasn't able to determine what is being proposed. You say it's under 900 square feet, correct?
Yes.
That's correct.
Oh, go ahead, Tony.
my answer.
According to the assessor's information, the current residence is 1948 square feet. And at 30%, that comes out to a lot less than 900 square feet. So maybe you could explain that a little bit further for me?
Is that a question for staff or for the applicant?
For the applicant, please.
Sure. Tony Thompson, plans ahead. It's not the living area, it's gross floor area that's computed in that factor. So that includes horizontal section through the buildings of areas greater than 7 feet. I did not rely on the assessor's card. Evan contacted me last week to get into this question, and I went and actually measured the house. It turns out that the assessor's information was correct, and just to confirm those numbers, and the gross floor area is 2,664 square feet. Its gross floor area is a different calculation than living area.
Thank you for explaining that.
No problem.
The accessory apartment is going to have a full basement, is that correct?
That's correct.
So will that square footage be added into the 900 square feet or so main level?
It is not considered habitable space.
I'm sorry, I'm losing power here. I've got like 9% left. So I'm gonna make it really quick.
Okay, it is not added to the living area of the accessory apartment.
So, but what if it's finished?
Well, it's not, if it's, we'd have to go to the town to get a permit to finish it. We don't propose on finishing it. There are utilities below and there's bathrooms above that we need to service. So we need access to that.
Right, but there are no plans to finish the basement at this time.
There are not.
Tony, Harry Smith, town planner, I'm sorry to jump in, but it's 900 square feet and it says of gross floor area. So I don't know off the top of my head whether the basement, what its dimensions are, height and everything else, is that defined, was that included in the gross floor area you calculated? And is that part of the gross floor area would be my question.
Of the proposed addition, I mean, I did not put that into the gross floor area calculation.
Well, is it gross floor area, per our definition in the zoning regs?
The existing basement or the proposed basement?
Both, I guess.
So the basement of the existing, I did go measure, is over 7 feet. So again, by definition, I did include that in the gross floor area calculation. I did not add the basement of the proposed addition to the gross floor area. I mean, that's not existing, so I didn't add that. I mean, that would make our percentage considerably lower. So again, I did not add that in. We can, it would help us, but I did not.
Well, let me ask this. Will it be accessible or, to the person living in the accessory apartment, or is it just going to be additional basement area for the person living or, family in the rest of the structure?
Well, they're going to have separate utilities, so it is accessible for the owner of the or the occupant of the accessory apartment.
So it seems like it's part of the accessory apartment to me, just listening to this. And maybe it ought to be included as such. We can look at the definition. I just didn't even think about this when we were reviewing the application, to tell you the truth.
Add the definition if you want to see it. So here it says, gross floor area shall mean the sum of total horizontal area of all floors of a building as measured from the exterior walls. Such measurement shall not include any space with headroom of less than 7 feet. And it does not include parking areas, and only decks and porches shall be included if it's a commercial property, such as a restaurant or something like that. So I'm not sure if a basement would be calculated into that, but I think Tony stated that he didn't count the existing basement as part of his that 30% calculation.
Well, the accessory apartment is limited to 900 square feet of living area, not gross floor area. So, you know, again, it does comply.
Well, actually, you know, the Harry Smith Town Planner, it says no accessory apartment shall have a gross floor area of more than 900 square feet or more than 30% of the gross floor area of the principal dwelling unit, whichever is less. So I think we probably have to clarify that. And
okay.
That's possibly covered in the condition that Evan's already cited, to have, you know, someone with, you know, no disrespect intended, but somebody with a professional credential on the line, you know, validate that it's within the limits in the regs.
Sure. That's a condition of the, that's already been put forth, correct?
Exactly right. Exactly right. So it either makes it, or if it doesn't, then it would have to be adjusted to, you know, live within it.
Yep. Yeah, we'll agree to that condition.
Okay. So make sense, Evan?
Yeah, I think it does fall within the existing condition, but if we need to add some more language, we can take care of that probably tonight.
Okay.
I have one other question, please, for the commission.
Certainly.
According to the regulations, I think it's Connecticut General Statute Section 8, subsection 30G, that there will be a deed restriction that will need to be placed on the land records for affordable housing. If the current resident of the accessory apartment leaves, the owner of the property has to have a restriction that if it's going to be rented, it will be rented at or below prices that would qualify the apartment as affordable housing.
And unfortunately, that regulation, which we included to help increase our affordable housing stock, was superseded by statute, which says we can't do that anymore.
That's good to know.
Okay.
All right. That answers my question. Those are,
Yep.
oh, I'm sorry. That's
No, that was
Deborah
it.
Corcoran.
Yeah, Debbie Corcoran here as well. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have any other questions.
No, I have no other questions either. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to comment? Evan, do you see anybody?
Any other members that would like to speak, down at the bottom of your screen, leave a reactions button, and then raise your hand to indicate that you'd like to comment.
They haven't voted on it yet.
I don't see anyone at this time.
Okay, great. Are there any further comments by the applicant or commission members or staff? Hearing none, then I think we can close this matter as a public hearing. So thank you very much. I think we'll bring this up later and see what. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So then that brings us then to item number 3 for our public hearings, which this is the Jefferson Woods, the Westford Real Estate Management LLC, Jefferson Woods Community, care of Nally Solon owner. This is the special exception modifications, the construction of additional parking that we opened this public hearing a couple of meetings ago and continued it to tonight. but I understand that there's still discussions going on, and the applicants requested that we continue this further to our November 17th meeting. Harry, is that correct?
Harry Smith, Town Planner, that is correct. They've also offered a time extension because we would be over the 35 days, since, as you noted, the public hearing started on October 6th.
Great. So then for item number 3, if you're here on that one, that's continued. We're going to continue that to our next meeting, which is on our November 17th, another Zoom meeting.
Okay, so just for the record, the commission's accepting the time extension. I think it's even phrased as through the next meeting. I think I document here somewhere.
That's correct. I don't know if there's a specific number of days, but we had discussed continuing to November 17th.
Okay, so the applicant has offered, and we have accepted the time extension to continue the public hearing to our November 17th meeting.
Yes.
So then that completes our public hearings. So does anyone want to take a break now? We're going to keep going. Just checking. We can take a short one if you want.
Sharon Hutner votes to keep going.
Okay. I don't hear anyone else, so we're going to keep going. So then let's look at our minutes. Our minutes were sent, I think, 2 sets of minutes, October 20th and the July 21st. And I understand we're only going to consider the October 20th meeting because we're still tweaking the July 21st meeting. So that said, we were sent in our packet and by email the minutes for our October 20th meeting. Does someone want to make a motion with respect to those minutes?
Chadwick will make that motion.
Joe Chadwick makes a motion to approve the October 20th, 2022 minutes. Is there a second?
Marcy seconds.
Second by Marcy. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Joe Chadwick, you in favor? Joe, are you in favor? Did I hear you say yes?
Yes, Chadwick is in favor.
Yes. Marcy?
Marcy's in favor.
Joe Vayuso? I think Joe is muted at the moment.
Let me see if I can unmute him. Oh, there he is. Okay.
Joe Vayuso accepts.
Okay, Joe's in favor. And Sharon, you're voting this tonight.
Yep, Sharon Hutner is in favor.
Yes, and Chair's also in favor. So those minutes are approved. Okay, then. Any correspondence, Harry?
Harry Smith, Town Planner, no correspondence.
Okay. Okay, let's go back to our public hearing items. The first item was 819 East Main Street. So, Harry, I think there are some highlighted sections of the draft resolution that maybe merit some discussion. So you want to pull that up?
Yep. So should be up right now. I'm just going to quickly flip through, finding anybody cry out if there's anything concerned, questions, whatever. Conditions 1, 2 about pre-construction meeting and things before any construction activity, rock removal, pre-blast survey. These are a list of things that need to be changed. The plans, additional information before a building permit. We talked about the landscaping area or the existing vegetation on the Route 1 right away, going down to some highlighted areas. So we have this site curb cut opposite the Evergreen Woods Drive. Does not line up. For some discussion about why it doesn't line up. Statement from, I believe, the traffic engineer stating, I understand what she said in her opinion, did not present a safety issue. So where do you want to go?
Okay, so why don't we go around? Joe Chadwick, thoughts?
Yeah, I did not follow the logic necessarily on why they could not align, but I don't think there is enough intensivity of use for this to be a problem with them not aligning. I I'm trying to get my head around like the substantive technical issues. There seemed to be a problem on the part of the traffic engineer with respect to an alignment, and frankly, I didn't get it. It struck me more that there was a problem in disturbing the pattern of the parking. And from that standpoint, plans can be rearranged. So I'm looking for a compelling reason at this point why they need to align or why they can't align. So I'm really I can't offer like a firm opinion on it. I just don't understand.
Sure. Thanks, Joe. That's good. Marcy, thoughts?
I do understand the logic for why they didn't want to align, because it's just the easiest way to design the parking lot with the loading and the truck movement. And because given the shape of the lot, I could see where it would be very difficult to bring in trucks from Route 1 and have to, use those radiuses and maneuver them. And this is just a very clean approach for the trucks. And, and I did find the separation of traffic for the pedestrians was an interesting viewpoint. I think it's valid, although not, necessarily overreaching as far as, necessity to have it that way. But I did very much understand the logic with the trucks and the pickup. And I do think it would be better to keep those off of that road, the residential roadway that they had narrowed. As far as what they had stated about Evergreen Woods being, a full roadway out, there is another exit out of Evergreen Woods onto Route 22. It is an older active adult community that I don't know how much traffic is really going through there other than the residents and the support staff, which, I don't think is substantially larger than this project. So to have it offset, I don't see that as a major issue to leave it the way it is. I am aware of, a future project that's being proposed down the street, which gave me a little bit more pause. But even though they're the designers of it, I guess it wouldn't be appropriate to talk about it as far as traffic, because it's not, in the public record as of yet for an application with OSTA or the town. So, but I don't particularly have an issue with the offset roadway.
Okay, so you can leave it as is. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Joe Vayuso?
Not knowing all the details, not seeing all the details, but the way I saw it, what the applicant was saying, something in the effect that it was, if that was aligned, it was going to cause some major internal problems with truck radiuses, whatever. Mostly with their internal traffic would be impeded quite a bit. And I'm sort of thinking that, based on what I know, I think it should just stay the way it is. It's just a driveway on the other side, and their driveway. I mean, it's nice to have it in line wherever possible, but it seems like it's going to be more of a difficulty on their part internally to create an alignment, and it may not be quite that necessary to do it. So I'm going to say go with Marcy to opinion, keep it the way it is.
Thanks, Joe. Sharon?
I don't have enough expertise to know about whether it should be aligned or not, but I don't know if it's appropriate now, but I agree with Mr. Scott, who suggested that they eliminate the driveway onto Goldsmith and just have the two exits and entrances on Route 1.
Okay, well, that's not even on here, so I'll have to bring that up separately. But,
okay, sorry.
So, but we will bring that up. But what about for the alignment? So you're just saying you don't know,
right?
Like, okay, got it. Okay, yeah, and I'll go along with the sentiment. Marcy and Joe, I kind of I'm okay with it as is. I think that this entrance, I think the alignment, this is the entrance. I bet the trucks are going to go in. If you go to the rear loading area, there's 3 entrances. This is the one they use. And I think it makes some sense that it would go there. I don't think it's, I asked, would it be a safety problem if they're not aligned? And I don't. There's 2 other entrances, the volume, I don't think it's that big a deal. So I'm okay also with leaving that one as is. So it sounds like we got the majority then that are okay as leaving it as is.
Okay.
So we'll take that up. And then you've got the next one, the walkway issue. We're going to raise that, and we're going to raise the issue that Sharon just raised too, because that's not even on here, but let's go over this one. This is the Harry, can you bring up the site plan and maybe show that where that is?
Sure. Well, let's see if it'll just flip for me, but I don't know. Nope. Let me stop my share and go to another box here. So hang on. Okay, so can everyone see the site plan at this point?
Yeah, can you enlarge it and maybe focus in on where you're talking about?
Sure. So again, we're talking about, this is a walkway here, internal to the site. So talking about extending this walkway across the entrance to this parking area and down along the this access drive is going to not be moved down to the sidewalk they proposed along Route 1 right here.
Okay. So, and the reasons for doing that is I guess to provide safe pedestrian, otherwise you're walking, where the cars are.
Right. And, just one other point I didn't make, which is, this is the currently proposed use for this facility, but uses of buildings do change over time and ownerships of properties do change as well. So it's not necessarily the final use of the property or.
Right. And the applicant preferred not to do that because, although they could.
Right. It sounded like a security issue almost, where they just didn't want to invite the public in that way, though, there's nothing preventing the public from driving their car in and parking. So.
Yeah, I don't know.
At least at this point. At least at this point.
A lot of pedestrians, all those pedestrians going up on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Well, let's, anyone have opinions on this?
Yeah, I do. Sharon Hutner here.
Yeah, let's start with you.
I really think that we should have a sidewalk there. One thing is like a chicken and the egg kind of scenario, will people take the bus and use the sidewalk? Well, if there's no sidewalk, then people won't be encouraged to take a bus. And also, I was just looking on the map, there are some things that people can walk to if they're going to be leaving for lunch. There's a country farm stand that's kind of just up the road on the other side of the Guilford line. So if people want to go to the country farm stand in nice weather and buy some fruits and vegetables for lunch, they can walk there. So I really think we should ask them to do the sidewalk.
Sharon says yes. Joe Vayuzo, Pat?
Yeah, I agree with Sharon. I think we should do it.
Okay. Marcy?
I believe I have seen a bus stop just past Evergreen Woods near the other elder care facility. And I have seen people use that. And there's not a lot of places to walk to, but I do think that people do walk over lunch. So I tend to, not really agree with the applicant's rationale. I think, I don't really see what the big deal is. I think it's a better design to have it than to not have it. And I don't really, I guess I don't really buy into the applicant's rationale for not having it because, you know, in areas like this, why would somebody just meander onto the site unless they had a purpose to really be there? I just don't see that happening, right? So, but you know, if I don't think that's the thing that's making the building unsecure. I mean, I think, you know, you've got locks and lights and, you know, you could have ring cameras or whatever to look at other issues relative to security. I don't think that a walkway from a public sidewalk makes the site less secure for the owner, but you know, I can go either way, you know.
Okay.
But I do think it makes good sense.
Okay, so Marcy's leaning yes, leaning sidewalk. So Joe Chadwick.
I think if sidewalks were contingent or security was contingent upon sidewalks, we'd roll them up at night. There is no connection between security and sidewalks, especially on a site like this, especially with the pedestrian traffic that you would get in this end of town. I can't think of anything more miserable than having to stand in the rain and snow to get on a bus to go to work, to get off the bus, that nice warm bus, onto a sidewalk, and then have to climb through snow in a driveway to get up to work. It's a modest bit of civility. As Sharon pointed out, in nice weather, it's just a better way to walk to amenities around the site. I can't find an excuse why you wouldn't want to put a sidewalk in there except to save a couple bucks. And I'm not buying that right now.
Okay, so Joe's pro sidewalk, and I agree with everyone too. So I'm also pro sidewalk. So Harry, let's you can put the resolution back on there.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to unhighlight this.
Yeah, okay. Okay. What else you got? I know I don't want to forget the one Sharon mentioned.
Nope. Facilities for bicycle parking. I think they've already have that, but just again, don't have the plans in front of me. So all this, I'm just not going to reiterate everything.
Yeah,
I think we're down to EV. Well, we have this wording here with the concurrence of the town planner designated applicant may designate a portion of the parking spaces. That should be R. In excess of the amount required as reserved parking. So this leaves it to the applicant. Again, there's no requirement in the regulations that would, I think, allow the commission to reduce the number of parking spaces they propose.
Mm-hmm.
Could I interrupt?
Sure.
Hi, it's Marcy. You had said that there was going to be the regulation that was coming this January 2023 for 10%.
Yeah, I mean, I'll show that in a minute, but we're doing Jay. I just want to make sure Jay's okay. So I'll go down to K.
Yeah.
Everybody's good with Jay? Okay. So down to K.
Oh, you really talking about revert. I thought I heard EV station. Yeah, I mean, I think reserve parking they should only put the minimum that they actually need. Seems like they're proposing quite a bit. Not that I wouldn't approve it because it fits, but
yeah, we just don't have, I don't see there's a regulatory tool in the zoning regs to allow the commission to say, hey, you can only have what's minimally required.
Right, but I mean, maybe I heard this wrong. It's Marcy again, but did they say they only had a staff of like 30 or 40 and they were?
It was 48, I think. And the other comment was they envisioned having some meetings. This was a kind of a corporate headquarters that might require many more parking spaces.
So an additional 80 people coming to meetings, is that?
I don't know. And, you know, the other comment, and I did make this comment, I didn't envision, 36 extra spaces or whatever it is. But they did talk about wanting the ability to be flexible with the allocation of the space inside the building when the breakdown between R&D sort of floor area versus offices, and possibly foresaw more of the building being used as office in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I have no issue with knowing that they have room to fit 140. It just doesn't seem like they need 140 right now, and why
Right.
couldn't you do like something that's a little more lead sensitive and, you know, less pervious pavement, you know,
Right, right. And that, I think they seem to be willing to look at it themselves and come back and say, okay, maybe, you know, 20 of these we won't build right now. We'll rough out the grades and we'll, you know, we'll just let it be grass for now.
Right. Or maybe they could save a mature tree.
Yeah, possible. It didn't sound like with the grades and everything, you still have to do the tree wells, but
well,
yeah.
honestly, I think that, I mean, I would rather see them save money building less parking and save money with the tree wells, because I don't think that the trees are necessarily going to survive in that scenario. I'd rather see them plant more trees or plant larger trees initially. You know, those are just a very slippery slope, and they cost a lot of money. And, you know, to ask them to do the sidewalk and give them relief on the tree wells and give them relief on the total parking as far as having to construct it, I mean, I think we're being considerate of their budgets. You know, not that we have to be, but
So, but just as far as J, everyone's okay with J. So, I mean, we're not, I don't see any authority to require less parking, but we want to encourage it, and that's what J does.
Yes.
Yep. Yep. Okay, great.
So now go to K, right?
Go to K. Going to K, I propose this with as a requirement that they propose a number of spaces commensurate with the EV guidelines, which I understand is 10%, which would be 13 spaces based on the 136 rounding down parking spaces they propose. So they're proposing 2. Again, this isn't a regulation, it's not a requirement, it's not January yet. So that guideline will be enshrined in law as a requirement as of January 1st. But it does not say regulatory, excuse me, does not say through zoning regulations, it says through a requirement imposed by the legislative body. And I'm going to put if people are curious, I can put that public act language up if you want to look at it.
Harry, what I wanted to ask is, they're not going to have this building built before January 2023. From a legal perspective, when does that law apply to new construction? You know, Charles?
Well, that's, you know, I'm frankly probably going to talk to town council about it, because it's not up to the commission to, I think it's the municipality, and whether something needs to happen or automatically happens as a statutory requirement, whether it could be applied at the building permit level, I don't know. It's just not applicable now because, you know, we're not in that time frame yet. So, and we only have, you know, you only have the authority you've got. So it sounded like, you know, and then I a little unclear, and I should have said something before we close the hearing, but Attorney Shansky seemed to say she was okay with everything except the sidewalk connection. So I don't know whether she was saying she's okay with this as we talked about possibly modifying it, or okay with the language the way it's already written.
Yeah, that's my question. Is the applicant okay with this?
Yeah. And the other part of it is, you know, we've in the past, if applicants have said, hey, I just want to put the conduit in, you've just required the conduit.
Well, I think
so
that's at a minimum, because, you know,
yeah,
that's where things are going, and it, you know, they're at some point, I think they're going to need them. So
yeah, I agree. I just want to be fair and, you know, follow the rules as they are right now. So maybe that's, you know, a reasonable middle ground where we require the conduits since they're installing the parking lot, and they can install the EV charging stations.
You mean have the 2 that they propose and the conduits for the other ones?
Right, right.
Okay.
So you have conduit for 10 at least, and install the 2 they proposed.
Okay.
This is Sharon Hutner here. I think that's a really good compromise.
Okay.
Is that what this regulation, do you need to tweak this, or is that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I need to tweak the wording here.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm gonna put 2.
Oops.
Let's get rid of this. Here. Okay, we got 2 electric vehicle charging station equipped parking spaces offered by the applicant, as well as conduits. Additional 8 potential future EV charging stations shall be provided.
Don't they need a total of 13 after the?
Oh, sorry, I'm not even doing my math right. You're right.
Wouldn't it just be easier to make reference to a quantity established by statute?
Because the statute isn't in effect yet.
Right. That's my point, because we don't want, if something changes between now and then, as minimally unlikely as that is, if you just index it to whatever the prevailing requirement is,
I think they
harder
can
to fight.
0. That's my concern.
Yeah, right now it's 0. If they
right, but they're building this thing when the requirement comes up.
We may have to adopt an ordinance.
Right. Well, as well as conduit additional potential future number.
Could you say that, consistent?
I like a fixed number.
Completion of the project.
I put at least 11 or something. I don't know, whatever. I like certainty.
Couldn't you reference it to the ordinance at the completion of the project?
This is Sharon.
It can get really complicated at this point. If they don't like it, they could come back in and apply to modify it. I think they kind of signed off on it, frankly, or an argument can be made that they did.
This is Sharon Huntner here. I think we should use exact numbers and see what the applicant's reaction is.
Okay, so this would be a conduit to at least an additional 11 potential future EV charging stations. So, how about?
Again, I mean, we could tell them, we could advise them about the statute, and that would be our support for this particular condition.
Okay, may be added as well. So
without returning to the Planning Zoning Commission or something.
Yeah, without further approval. I'm not the typist Evan is. Okay.
Or its staff.
Or its staff.
Of its staff. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on that one? Okay, we're good on that. What else you got that's highlighted?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Yep, I think that's it.
Okay, then Sharon brought up the issue that was brought up by the Mr. Scott, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Why do you need this third entrance off of Goldsmith, or what?
It's Goldsmith, yeah.
Yeah. Goldsmith. And the applicant basically, they said they wanted it sort of a pedestrian and vehicular safety and convenience for the people parking on the site plan, that they could leave, that it's convenient for them. They can walk to their cars, and that they could drive out through that entrance. They don't have to drive through the other parts of the parking lot that could, get in the way of people walking to their cars and things like that. And so it would be convenient. And I think it is a road, and I think, I guess they have the right to do it. So anyway, that was their, and the assumption was that the concern is that I assume it's residences that live down that road don't want big truck, they don't want truck traffic, and they want to, I guess, minimize any traffic that goes on the road. So anyway, that's I assume that was the reason for the question by the public, by Mr. Scott. So anyway, let's go around on that one. Joe Chadwick.
This is another issue that I'm completely ambivalent about. If at some point they decide to subdivide the property and that becomes the primary exit from some piece of the subdivision, I could see it being a problem. But for the amount of traffic relative to the amount of residential traffic, it seems de minimis. I think I just don't understand what the problem is.
Okay, so you're okay with it, it sounds like.
I'm just fine with it, yeah.
Okay, Marcy?
I think that's a little bit of a not in my backyard kind of knee-jerk reaction. You know, you've got 40 cars, 3 routes in or out. You know, that's what, 12, less than 10, 12 cars twice a day, maybe using that exit. You know, and I imagine it might be only the people that are heading towards Branford, that the people heading towards North Branford or Guilford are going to take the far right one or the middle one. So, you know, I mean, I don't think I recall whether they said there's any kind of shift work going on. That would imply that, you know, cars are all leaving at the same time. You know, but I agree with Joe that it's a very low impact on that side road, but helps with, you know, just adding extra options for the parking lot.
Sure.
Which
Joe,
does impact safety.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Which does help the safety, which is what they said.
Right. Joe Vayuso?
I'm sort of good with that curb cut because if I understand it correctly, they narrowed it down and they were eliminating any kind of truck traffic, and it was just limited to car traffic. And like Marcy said, how many cars are we talking a day here? And it is going into a public road. So, and it does create some convenience and some safety issues for those cars not having to travel throughout the complex to get to another curb cut. I think I'm good with it.
Sure. Sharon?
I guess I sit corrected.
You can still say you think it should be eliminated, but whatever, that's fine. Okay, I mean, I'm good with it. I mean, basically for other reasons, you know, it's, they have frontage on the road and it is, you know, it's been narrowed. And I thought the rationale they gave makes sense. So. Okay, so we'll leave that as. Anything else that we need to be concerned about with respect to this application? Any other conditions or anything I've left out, or does anyone else want to say anything about this? I mean, looks like a great use for the town and the site and so forth. Excuse me, Marcy?
Did we make a decision on tree wells?
Right now, we're not requiring them, I think. Is that correct, Harry?
That's correct. It sounded like, in particular, Marcy, I think comment you made about them being, you know, 3 foot being pretty deep well. It would probably have to be fairly wide as well to stop, you know, you don't want fill over the roots, my understanding of the problem. And the applicant kind of agreed with that, I think. So.
Yeah. So the issue is taking away trees, and they said, well, maybe we could put 4, restore maybe 4 if we put in the tree wells. But then the more they thought about it, I think both Marcy and then the applicant said, no, they're not likely to survive. And Marcy made the good point that the replacement, you know, the equivalent number is being replaced in basically the shade trees in the parking lot, I think so, even though they're not fully mature yet.
Right.
So I was convinced that we didn't need to do that. So I don't know what else other people thought.
Tree wells, very seldom do they work long term. now it even changes the water table. It just doesn't work. And those trees are matured already. So how much more maturity are they gonna get? So you're better off, doing it right and just put in, bring it up to the numbers that they're taking away, like they mentioned. So I better off in that, going down that road.
Okay, anyone else? Any thoughts? So right now the resolution does not require, they can take out all the trees they said they're going to take out, but we're not requiring them to try to save a few by putting them in tree balls.
Harry Smith, Town Planner, just going back to the curb cut in the Goldsmith Road for a second. I think everyone did acknowledge that has been narrowed, and the reinforced pavement, that maybe nobody pointed this out. There is a section of reinforced pavement that runs from the loading areas out through the westernmost curb cut onto Route 1. So in response to a comment from the town engineer who brought up the question of trucks coming out of the Goldsmith beginning months and months ago, they have modified the plans to direct the truck traffic to Route 1. But my understanding is, it's probably very difficult for a fairly large-sized tractor trailer to negotiate its way onto Goldsmith Road through the narrowed curb cut, but you could get box trucks or some other deliveries coming that way. I just don't want it to be misunderstood that there would be no trucks of any kind coming in through Goldsmith Road. So you might get deliveries like that because that kind of truck could easily make it through there.
Well, what do you want to say? No,
I'm not saying anything. I don't think, I think the resident from Guilford further down the road did want to do that, but I don't believe you can say there shall be no box trucks coming through a driveway. It's allowed, as a site access road into the property.
We can't.
I don't believe you can, because you're basically, it's a curb cut onto a town road.
Right. I mean, we could direct them truck, I don't know, signage.
Well, I think effectively you have for a larger truck that's going to create a problem.
Right.
And it's going to start pounding down, Goldsmith Road, and we'll have trouble negotiating the geometry of the whole thing and create a problem. I don't think the box truck is really going to create a problem, frankly, in my opinion, but that's, I'm a lay person with this subject matter, so.
Did they say that they were directing their truck traffic?
Yes.
Through Route 1, right? Okay.
They did, yeah.
Is there a note to that effect on the plan?
No, I don't believe there is. There is the reinforced pavement, which clearly goes to that western drive onto Route 1. And they said it on the record tonight during the public hearing. And that's how I believe they're going to operate the site. And they may say all trucks should come that way. And, but in my understanding, talking to the town engineer, there's, no prohibition on trucks of any kind, particularly smaller ones, from using Goldsmith Road.
Right. Well, I mean, the residents can have the truck go down.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I don't think it's I don't think it's an issue.
Right.
But
I mean, a FedEx truck can go down and deliver stuff to the residents.
Exactly. Right. All that.
Okay.
There's always the option of having a sign posted that says local deliveries only. I see those all over the place.
Yeah, that's more the traffic commission, or that's a road issue, I think.
Right, but it's not our jurisdiction. But if it's a concern for them, the residents of that street, they can request that somewhere.
Right, they can come to the traffic authority. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Good point.
Okay, then. So we're done, right?
I think so.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Again, good use, supported economically, and all that stuff. Anyone else want to say anything? If not, then does someone want to make a motion to approve this application by adopting the resolution, the findings and conditions in the resolution as amended that Harry's been presented to us?
So it'd be just technically the staff recommendation revised. I just wrote in, so differentiate it from the other one.
Right. labeled revised with today's date.
Yep.
November 3rd.
Joe Valuso moves to approve with all those changes.
Okay, so Joe Biozzo moves to approve the application by adopting the staff recommendation as revised. And is there a second?
Chadwick will second.
Joe Chadwick seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Joe Chadwick.
Chadwick is in favor.
Marcy.
Marcy's in favor.
Joe Biuzzo.
Joe Valuso in favor.
Sharon.
Sharon Hutner is in favor.
And Chair is also in favor. So that application is approved. If anyone's listening, they're still out. Okay, so let's go to the second public hearing that we had, which is 45 Pine Orchard Road. And maybe we can bring up Evan's staff recommendation for that one.
Sure. Can you guys see it?
Yes. Okay.
I highlighted the condition we discussed before and underlined the language that I added this week. And I believe Harry made a point that he wanted to make sure that the language would cover the definition of gross floor area versus livable space. So I just went to the section that I referenced in that condition, section 7.4A7, and it does say no accessory apartment shall have a gross floor area of more than 900 square feet or more than 30% of the gross floor area. We do have a gross floor area definition. So Harry, do you think that covers your concerns that you discussed before?
I think it's completely covered. I agree with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think before we can vote on these conditions before you now, you guys would have to vote to waive the survey requirement.
Okay. Any comments for anyone? If not, first, I think the conditions address the issues, complies with the regulations, provides, more housing, which is always good. So first, does someone make a motion to waive the survey requirement with respect to this accessory apartment application?
I'll just ask the question why we think that's appropriate.
Why do we think it's appropriate to waive the survey? Sure. It's certainly a fair question. I think it's okay because the condition that we're putting in here serves the purpose of meeting the survey. In other words, I was particularly concerned about the setback issue because they're right on the setback. The accessory apartment is 10 feet away and they're doing it. And so that's why the things you want to survey. So they're just not making it up and whatever. And that's why we want to have in this underlying area, sort of like an as-built, before they even begin it, you want them to have it done. So to me, it's okay to waive. You don't need a survey for the whole property if we have a condition that requires a surveyor, because that's who it's going to have to be, to at least measure this lot line, of where it's close. I mean, who cares if it's 10 acres and it's nowhere close, but this is the sort of situation you want to survey. And you wouldn't normally waive it. But on the other hand, I'm cognizant of the fact that this is a residential use. This isn't the research laboratory that we had. This is somebody who wants to do something, give it to their kid, and it's their dwelling, and they want to put something in for that. I get that. So let's do what we need to do, which is require the surveyor for that which is close. And that's why I'm okay doing it. Anyway, that's me.
Thank you. That's my concern, because it's like, if for some reason, the calculation was wrong or something was wrong on the drawing, I'm not sure where Tony got his information from. If it, say he got from the GIS, that could be wildly incorrect.
Correct.
And then and it could create a whole another layer of an issue going to ZBA and so forth. And it just seems like it just seems like I would want to know that before. But I mean, as far as adding the housing and the use, I have no issue with it. I just felt like it was, you know, I felt like they should know that before they get too far into it. That's all.
No, I agree. And that's why it's prior to the start of construction, before he does anything. He's gonna have to verify this.
Well, with the building plans.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right.
Yeah, for the building and the setback and the actual size. So
Okay. Yeah, as long as that's understood, that's fine.
yeah, so that's my rationale. So anyway, I don't want anyone else thinks. But if so I guess with that rationale, if you buy into that, does someone make a motion that we waive the survey requirement?
Sharon Hutner moves.
Motion made by Sharon. Is there a second?
Seconds.
Second by Joe. Any further discussion? All in favor of the waiver? Joe Chadwick.
Chadwick is in favor.
Marcy.
Marcy's in favor.
Joe Vayuzo.
In favor.
Sharon.
Sharon Hutner is in favor.
And Chair is also in favor. Okay, so we waived the survey requirement. Someone want to make a motion then to approve the application by adopting the findings and resolution as amended in Evan's staff report that he's presented to us.
I'll make that motion. Marcy has presented.
Okay, motion made by Marcy. Is there a second?
Sharon Hutner will second it.
Second by Sharon. Any further discussion? All those in
Yeah,
favor?
I just got
Yes.
I just have like a bad feeling that unless everything is true in that first condition and we go ahead and approve it and say it's not true, say the ratio doesn't work, or say what is the next step then for the applicant? They go back and redesign and come back?
Harry Smith Town Planner, I think they have to either redesign it, come back, or they would need to, seek a variance to exceed what's in the regulations, one or the other. But this is just a check to make sure what they're proposing is actually valid and the appropriate professionals certified it in terms of the area of the unit to be created.
Okay, I just didn't want to sort of make it sound like we're giving too much away too soon without sort of correct. I mean, this is like such fundamental stuff, like knowing how big something is and where it is.
Yeah, I mean,
something. I mean, it's just to come in this far without having that as certain information. And it's just numbers. It's just arithmetic.
Yeah.
It just kind of bothers me. But I with that in mind and given the hour, I would second that motion.
Yeah, and there was in the packet, there was a 1998 survey that where the markers are out there. I think there's a basis for them. I mean, they're not just totally making it up. It's in relatively recent. There is some professional, but he's not, that's not the right professional. So it's not just total crap. So anyway, so Joe, someone made motion. Joe, were you that?
That was the second, yes.
Yeah, and
Sharon already seconded, I think. Wait a minute.
Okay.
So we're down to the
made
vote
the
now.
motion.
Okay. So all those in favor, Joe Chadwick.
I'm sorry, Joe Chadwick's in favor.
Yeah,
Okay.
Marcy.
Marcy's in favor.
Joe Vayuzo.
Joe Vayuzo in favor.
And Sharon.
Sharon Hutner is in favor.
And Chair is also in favor. Okay, so running through the agenda, what's next? We have old business. Item number 1 is the site plan modification for lighting. And again, my understanding is there's still discussions going on, or we still need additional information on that one, Harry. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
Harry Smith, Town Planner. The applicant does not have the information together yet. So they have requested tabling the whole matter to the meeting on the 17th. Similar to the other application at Jefferson Woods, the 65 days to decide on this would be up before the 17th. So the applicant has offered a time extension of 20 days to take us through the meeting on the 17th. So you can accept the time extension and table the matter to the 17th.
Okay, so that's what we'll do. We'll accept the time extension and table item number 1 to the 17th. Items number 2, 3, 4, and 5 have public hearings scheduled for the 17th, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because we're moving on, guys. Item number 6 is we have to set a public hearing. So
we have the standard sort of standing motion to allow staff consultation with you, Chuck, to set the public hearing. Probably going to be 8th of December on 6, 8, and we'll probably have, given the number of things we have on the 17th, probably consider new business 1 and 2 on the 8th as well.
Okay.
And number 7 of old business is already set for the 17th.
Okay, so Harry just brought us through the rest of the old business. And
I did. There's one, just for the record, we have another application of new business at 65 Sunset Beach Road for a CAM. We'll set that in appropriate time as well.
Okay, great. So then that brings us then to other business, which is our planner's report. And Harry, what's going on? You want to run through?
Given the hour, there's not a whole lot I need to talk about. Did send an email to Peter Henschel, who's the chair of the Coastal Vulnerability Working Group. He said he would survey his members about the tentative special meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission on 11/28. We talked about the last meeting. So assuming they can make it, we'll get back and let everyone know about that and, you know, set that up. It looks like we'll have enough going on December 8th so that adding in a 2-hour discussion with the Coastal Vulnerability Working Group is probably not something we'll have time for unless you want to go to 11:30 again. So
did everyone agree to the 28th or the 29th? I didn't know if we actually got it.
I think we tentatively said it. I haven't gone around and surveyed everyone, so I don't know if everyone here right now is able to say what you want us to do after the meeting, considering it's, you know, after 10 o'clock already.
Yeah, I know it was that week or something. I'm just looking at my calendar right now.
Yep.
Right now, I'm scheduled to go to the Yale Rep on the 28th, but I could move.
I thought that was your Tuesday. All right.
Tuesday's the 29th.
Oh, I thought I thought the tickets was for the Tuesday. Okay, I'm sorry. I can go and, you know,
the
survey.
Is Tuesday fine? Tuesday the 29th?
I can make that work. Particularly if we started maybe at 7:30. I could do it at 7 o'clock, but 7:30 would be better.
Okay, 7:30 on the 29th?
Yep.
Okay, does that look good for people?
Sharon Huttner can do it.
Okay, Sharon, how about anyone got their calendars by them?
By you, so cannot do it.
Okay.
Okay.
I really can't commit yet because I don't know what family obligations I have in and around Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
All right.
I can't commit one way or the other. So.
All right. Let me say this. We'll continue the survey of members and see what that boils down to. And
yeah,
if we're try to work that date out or another date.
Right. I may be able to move I have season tickets, so I'm able to move it around.
Okay.
So,
okay.
So, okay.
All right. So I may go back to the 28th then. All right. We'll survey around and get back on this.
Okay. Great.
We're working on the meeting calendar, so we'll have that. And I understand Sharon's working on the slate for the election of officers. I would like to mention before, despite the lateness of the hour, that a gentleman who had decades-long tenure as sanitarian and assistant director of the East Shore Health District passed away this morning. I retired about 1.5 years ago. Alex Sonati, and is his gentleman's name. And maybe ask for a moment of silence for the commission and staff, just to acknowledge his passing. He's no one that came before the commission, but he was someone we worked with quite a bit here, and he's a fine gentleman, and you know, a very capable professional person. So very sad to see him go, particularly at the beginning of his retirement. So you take a moment, please. Well, thank you. And thank you all for your unpaid service as commissioners in your long night.
Well, and thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Harry. Harry, what about, did you want to say about the parking opt-out?
We can talk about that at a future meeting. Right now, the state statute is going to affect that changes essentially our parking requirements for 2 bedrooms and 2+ bedroom units from 2.5 spaces to 2 spaces. This really hasn't become a problem to date, but we may get some larger developments in. Other ones that have come in have voluntarily offered to comply with the 2.5. I can see where it become a problem where, you know, the 2.5 kind of gives you a little bit of wiggle room for guests. And that's the one situation I really think is not well addressed in the state law. And we have not opted out. There's no deadline on opting out. So it's the same procedure would have to be followed that we're following for the accessory dwelling unit opt-out. Commission would need to take a vote after public hearing. They would have to go to the RTM and they would have to vote to opt out. So we can do that, like I said, anytime. And we can talk about it again at a future meeting if you like.
Okay, just flag the issue and maybe we'll put it on the, I don't know, maybe we could even mention it at a special meeting if we do that one. We'll see.
Sure. Okay.
And then just speaking of the opt-out for the accessory apartment, where that's gone through the committee and recommended to the board.
Yeah, the Rules and Ordinance Committee took it up and they voted to recommend proceeding with the opt-out to the full RTM. That vote was to have taken place last night, but the full RTM canceled their meeting, so it was deferred to the regular meeting in December. So I'll keep track of that and I'll let you know the date, Chuck, or anybody else who may want to come to that. I will certainly plan on going to it in case there are any questions.
Okay. Anything else that needs to come up? Where I guess the December meeting is the elections. I think you mentioned that, Harry, and Sharon, you're going to poll people. So, okay. Anything else?
I have nothing. Evan, do you have anything?
Nope.
Okay. Any other members of the commission got anything?
Will you so one thing?
Yes.
Able to make 17th.
You're not going to be able to make the 17th? Okay. Busy season for you, Joe?
Between now and the 8th of December, it's going to be a little rough. So.
Yes. Understood. Thanks. Anything else from anyone? Not someone want to make a motion to adjourn.
Sharon Hutner makes a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Sharon. Is there a second?
Marcy seconds.
Second, Marcy. Further discussion. All in favor. Joe Chadwick.
Chadwick in favor.
Marcy.
Marcy's in favor.
Joe Vayuzo.
Favor.
Sharon.
Sharon Hutner is in favor.
And so is the chair. So we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org. This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.